really scared to make this video.
I am dreading making this video.
This video is something I never thought I was gonna ever have to make in my life.
I went from the boyfriend to the fiance to the husband.
Joshua and I are getting a divorce.
I just can't be here now. I gotta go find some kind of peace.
I wanted to leave Josh alone.
This is the very first time in 6 or 7 years after it happened where I feel like if I were to say something, I'm not going to be attacked by
millions of people all over the world call you the most vile, horrendous, disgusting, life-ruining words.
Telling me you're nothing without Colleen every single day.
She loved the attention, she loved the status. Do I think she truly loves her fans? I never really felt like she did.
My attention that night on diverted over to Josh.
He mentioned that he always wanted to speak about Josh. His overall aim was to build an audience and then make the Josh video, and he had made that very clear.
I hate that I have to keep having these conversations with you guys.
I'm scared because I've seen what she can do behind the scenes. I'm afraid of her.
I would never make a mistake like that.
And they compared her to a train, and they said, this is the Colleen train. You either get on as a passenger, or she's gonna leave the station without you.
Today I only want to talk about the facts.
And that's just the narrative that's believed.
When I started covering the Colleen Ballinger saga nearly 3 months ago, the last person I expected to slide into my DMs was Colleen Ballinger's ex-husband. But on Friday, June 30th, that's exactly what happened. I'm writing to you to communicate and give some personal insight about my involvement in all of this. I'm not looking to control the narrative or sidestep any responsibility. I do, however, want to make sure that if you decide to do something that focuses on my role here, that it is shown from a perspective including my voice as well. These are the words of Joshua David Evans, a man we've mentioned in all 3 of the documentaries in my series on Colleen Ballinger, but haven't actually heard from directly across the roughly 9 hours of our coverage. Now, for those of you who don't know, Joshua David Evans is a man who came to fame as a musician and YouTuber in the 2010s under the screen names Joshua D Town and Joshua D TV. The best way to explain Josh Evans is that his entire brand was cringe. Now, he didn't create cringe content, but he knowingly created very tongue-in-cheek content that has aged to varying degrees of okay to quite poorly. But for better and worse, it's not this content that made Josh so famous that he was interviewed by ABC News, featured in MTV True Life, and was in general a pretty big part of the mid-2010s YouTube stratosphere. It was his relationship and later marriage to none other than Colleen Ballinger.
Hi guys, so today I'm here with my husband, Joshua.
I'm not crying, I promise.
Josh Evans dated Colleen from 2009 to 2015 and was married to her from 2015 until 2016. Now, for the entirety of their relationship, both Colleen's massive fan base and Josh's own fan base became invested in their relationship to the point that they even had a cute little couple name, Joshleen. And it was this level of investment that may have felt so devastating to the fan base when on September 30th, 2016, Colleen Ballinger suddenly released a video that announced, after less than a year and a half of marriage, that she and Josh Evans were getting a divorce.
Joshua and I are getting a divorce.
And over the years, Colleen rarely, if ever, spoke about the divorce, to the point that the Colleen Ballinger Snark subreddit even had an entire subsection called The Phantom Divorce, detailing the phenomenon of Colleen pretending that she was never even married before at all. As she moved on from her past marriage, she released 2 seasons of her Netflix show Haters Back Off, she toured relentlessly as Miranda Sings, and she moved on to another relationship with her Haters Back Off co-star Eric Stocklin, eventually marrying him and having a few kids with him. Now, if you were following Colleen at the time, you might have said she wasn't perfect, but she was moving on gracefully. But that was publicly. Because while she was doing this, she was also involved in group chats with her fans, dishing about the many reasons that she and Josh got divorced, according to her. One of these group chats was known as the Weenies group chat, where she told some of her top fans about details from their past relationship, all while showing a level of transparency that is objectively inappropriate in private correspondence with her fans. And as we all know, there might be no one who experienced this worse than Adam McIntyre, a remarkable young man we've followed for the past 3 documentaries, who alleged Colleen was inappropriate with him back in 2020 before coming forward again in 2023 to state definitively that he had been used and manipulated at the hands of Colleen Ballinger.
This woman used me.
But what about Josh Evans? Friends, that's an answer that the Colleen fandom thought they had figured out for many years because of Colleen's correspondence in these group chats, where the image of Josh over the years became, as Adam McIntyre so astutely put it, the crazy ex-husband.
Okay, it's a lose-lose situation for this man. This seems incredibly draining. He couldn't have spoken up in 2016. He couldn't have 2017, 18, 19, 20. Look what happened to me in 2020, and I wasn't her husband. I was just by her and her fans, a crazy fan. Could you imagine being the crazy ex-husband?
It's this diminishing of Josh from a fully fleshed person separate from his past relationships that partially led him to leaving YouTube behind over the following years and fully in 2022 for a more private life with his wife Pamela, working a day job not related to entertainment, and living in a self-described tiny house. And this is more than likely where Josh would have remained if it weren't for a 2-month-long series of tweets, podcast appearances, and interviews that began on June 7th from a grown man named Johnny Silvestri, or John as I'll refer to him, who in the heat of the Colleen Ballinger accusations gaining ground on social media began accusing Joshua David Evans of being worse than Colleen Ballinger.
Josh has an ego, a massive one, and it's one that I can pinpoint and address, not even knowing the dude on a personal level to this day. It turned into this God complex where I think to this day, he has this skewed idea that he was being a mentor.
Now, if you've seen part 3 of the series, you already know exactly how all of that ended. As much as John tried to force Joshua to stay silent, ironically, it was John Silvestri himself that pulled Joshua David Evans back into the spotlight and into my DMs. Back in June 30th, 2023, Joshua himself said as much to me in his first DM, which is lengthy. I mean, let's be real, the man can talk. So I'm not gonna read it in full, but there are a few things that he said that made me quite curious. Quote, "This whole thing isn't about me, but my name is obviously one that gets talked about from time to time. Johnny is hurting and I absolutely want peace and healing for him. I also know that for some reason he's taking my involvement to a degree that feels more like a malicious attack rather than simply a person hurting. His claims are highly damaging and could burn down the life I've slowly had to rebuild after my own trauma I was put through by my ex and her manipulation tactics using her fans as pawns. It now feels like Johnny is heading down that road as well." Now, this passage was interesting to me because for those of you who haven't watched part 3 of my series, by June 30th, 2023, when Joshua sent this DM, he had already apologized privately and publicly 4 times. So I sent Joshua a response, and to balance the shade that I kind of just threw him a little bit ago, a can also talk, okay? Don't, yes, I can be a little long-winded too. So I'm only gonna read a couple of key things from my response here. Quote, "Since you reached out, I do have a few questions that research hasn't given me straight answers on relating to a few parts of the story. And I was wondering if you would be interested in answering them for me and perhaps sitting down for an interview to share your side. Some of my questions pertain to your relationship with Johnny, your status as a public to private person, and other questions that relate to your involvement with fandoms, both Colleen's and your own." Now, I let Joshua know that any interview wouldn't be easy, but I promised I would be fair. I told Joshua David Evans I had a lot of tough questions about the many words that have been thrown at him over the years. Was he really a crazy, manipulative ex-husband? Was he really complicit with the Colleen Ballinger nightmare? Did he really help make Miranda Sings material? His response actually shocked me. Quote, "If I were to go on the record with you, it feels risky. I'd be an idiot not to at least consider it going sour. If I lose my job, I lose the house I just bought with my wife." So let's be clear. Joshua David Evans has done some sketchy shit, but unlike every other adult in this story, it seems he's willing to admit it. Certainly beats a ukulele, doesn't it? Now, it's not up to me if Josh is going to be forgiven or if he has taken the correct approach to accountability, but unlike every other adult in this story, like Colleen Ballinger, Kory Desoto, John Silvestri, or Chent Ballinger, Joshua David Evans has offered to take accountability. In return, I am giving him the chance to also speak frankly about his own claims of pain publicly for the first time. So, as John Silvestri said back in part 3,
the world does want to hear Mr. Evans. The world wants to hear all of them.
And remember what I said all the way back in part 2?
There is also a bombshell that might happen in part 3. I have been waiting to even be able to speak about this, and I still can't because we are waiting for some things to be confirmed. But if that is the case, then part 3 is going to be just mind-boggling.
Yeah. That wasn't supposed to be about John Silvestri and what went down in part 3. That was about this. For the first time on such a massive public scale, Joshua David Evans is talking about it exclusively in an interview with me right here.
Alrighty, Josh interview, take 1.
My name is Joshua David Evans. I'm 39.
Joshua, we have a lot to talk about.
Buckle up, there's a lot to cover. Hi, my name is Swoop. Please allow a brief tone shift that I do at the beginning of all of my docs to thank you. If you're seeing me for the first time, welcome. I make documentaries and short films on unsolved cases, true crime, and social media influencers who abuse their power and manipulate audiences because, as I always say, it's not drama, it's dangerous. We also dig deeper into the root psychology, and sometimes we take it to Petty University. Now, real quick, and then we will jump right in. A huge thank you to our sponsor. Without them, this doc isn't possible. And again, thank you to all of you. So I don't know about you, but I hate, and I mean hate, shaving, the time, the razor bumps, the missed patches that you thought you got until you wear shorts and then the sun hits it, exposing all of your mishaps. Yeah, that. But like going the laser hair removal route is so expensive and time consuming. So instead of all of that, I have been using the Kenzie IPL handset for well over a year now. And it is a game changer. And spoiler alert, my link will save you money, honey. So the Kenzie IPL handset is an at-home device that has different wavelengths that target various skin conditions to help reduce acne, hair removal, age spots, and skin rejuvenation. You can get results as fast as 2 to 3 weeks and see full results in just 12 weeks. I have been using my Kenzie IPL handset for over a year now for hair removal on my legs and my pits and all other areas, and I love the results. Like, my hair grows back way slower and finer, and I hardly ever have to shave, and the best part, razor burn, be gone. So right out the box, you get this sleek, easy to use IPL handset that comes with 10 years of flashes. You get a quick start guide. Please pay attention to the skin chart to know your best setting and what results to expect. Deep tones should use level 1 only. You get a long 9-foot cord, 1 of 3 attachments depending on your device, a 12-month warranty, and a 90-day money-back guarantee to ensure that your device works for you or you can return it, okay? We love that. And they have amazing offers like part payments on the website. The IPL means intense pulsed light, which converts light energy to heat and is a broad spectrum to treat a wider area fast. It is non-radiating, convenient, safe, and efficient. And let me tell you, the fact that I don't have to deal with razor burn or expensive salons and I can do this at home in minutes is incredible. So if you want silky smooth, hairless results at home, go to my link below or go to kenzie.com. That's KENZZI.com and use my code SWOOP2 to get 20% off of the device. Yes, discount! So visit kenzie.com, use code SWOOP2 to get your 20% off discount, and I will see you in the land of glorious bump-free hairlessness. Treat yourself, honey. You deserve it. If you want to join the Petty University community, all are welcome. And I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone who has grabbed your items so far from the brand new Petty University Valid Apparel collection. I have been absolutely blown away by your response and support for the new collection, and I am already seeing some of your photos, which makes me so happy. I designed this collection to display our core, our backbone of values, and to be a daily reminder to all of you who have lived through challenges, whether it be as a survivor or coping with anxiety, depression, invisible illness, or chronic pain, whatever it may be. I want you to have a reminder that you are valid, you are brave, and you are so, so powerful. And I hope that that's a message as you wear it, that other people will see it as well and feel that for themselves. If you want to grab your pieces, the shop is linked below and in the pinned comment as always. And thank you again with all of my heart for your kindness and also for supporting me just as a small woman-owned business. It truly means so, so much to me, and I hope that you love these pieces as much as I do. I'm also launching a brand new second channel that you can subscribe to right now. I will be producing entirely new, shorter deep dives on topics that fascinate me, as well as things like full-length interviews that are featured here. So I hope you will join me over there. It is linked below. Okay, as we get into this, I want to give a heads up that these conversations will be censored and there will be no graphic or detailed discussions to make sure that we adhere to the platform's policies. There will be statements made that are alleged, and we will present corroborating evidence where appropriate. While my team and I have conducted extensive research, please do form your own opinion. And as always, please do not spread any hate on any platform ever, and be respectful in the comments with the goal of truth and healing for everyone. Thank you for that. So I want to reiterate something that I said at the end of part 3. I am not Team John. I am not Team Josh. I am and always have been Team Truth here. Joshua David Evans will be the first person to tell you that he is not an innocent person. And even though it makes discussing this story a bit more nuanced, he has done some bad things. He also had a lot of bad things done to him. Again, two things can be true at the same time. I still know the very idea of platforming Joshua can be controversial to some, and to be fully clear about this, I'm okay with that. I knew that a lot of people in the Colleen fandom deserved to hear about it. This is something my very small but dedicated team and I have discussed at length. And when I say our team is small, it's literally just me and 2 other people. One of those people has a full-time job, and the other one didn't even know who Colleen Ballinger was before we started this process, and now I believe is the world premier expert on all things Colleen Ballinger. That's how much time we've dedicated to this. Now, all voices are welcome here in a SWOOP doc, even the uncomfortable ones. All I've ever asked for is honesty and accountability, and it's up to them if they're going to give that or not. Joshua lived this. Joshua admitted this when I finally sat down with him on July 21st, 2023, his first full interview about his role in the Colleen Ballinger universe since his divorce back in 2016. This has been 7 years in the making. And just to note, Colleen Ballinger has still not responded to my request for comment.
Take a breath. Joshua, we have a lot to talk about, as you know. I first just want to thank you for sitting down here with me. I know this has been a difficult time for everyone involved in this situation. That's been just unraveling across the world, really. The public has really been watching everything that's been going on, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
My goal here is to just make sure that this is fair and balanced, and to be able to help provide some more context to all of this, the whole story, everything that's been going on. Okay. Be open, be honest. That's all I can ask for. Some of these questions are not going to be very fun.
Yeah. I'm ready for that.
You said that you've turned down a number of interviews, and
I've had a lot of mainstream media reach out and ask to do this exact situation, and I said no to all of them. I'm only doing this here. I'm not going to do it anywhere else. I don't want to hop onto other channels.
My intent is never to overwhelm anyone that I speak to, and to, if things become triggering or anything, as I've mentioned, we do have a trained crisis counselor on set. So if we need to stop, if we need to take a break, whatever it is, just let me know, and we can do that. Okay. We
Thank
just want to make sure that while we're getting the open, honest answers and telling your story, we're also doing it in a healthy way that's not going to trigger you.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I'm going to be as transparent as I can, and I mean that. It does feel like a hurricane is in my chest right now, so I'm not afraid to face things and to speak from the heart.
Here are the facts that I have in front of me when Joshua first reached out to me. John Silvestri had accused him of harmful behavior. And regardless of how exaggerated and often false John Silvestri's allegations turned out to be, Josh himself had contributed to the culture of Colleen Ballinger's world in troubling ways.
Obviously, there are allegations that have been levied against you, and we're going to get into those, but you have also alleged that you are a victim as well, and that's something that I and my team take very seriously. Beyond that, you were the only adult during the whole Colleen era and all of that is speaking, and I think that is also very important in this conversation.
I kind of expected it to be different. I didn't think I'd be the only one. To me, it's just weird that I'm the only one talking. But it makes sense as well, because if you choose to have an opinion or a stance, then that means people are going to be able to criticize you and look into you. And I understood that going into it, but I also thought there was something more important than just how I was being perceived when I started to see the true effects that had happened on these young adults. So here I am. The criticisms keep rolling in, and it's hard. I'm used to not looking good for the last 7 years. I just hope that something between this conversation and your videos, I think part 1 and part 2 of your videos have already done a lot for the people that would consider themselves affected or victims. And maybe this will kind of help put a period to that sentence. I was born in Macon, Georgia, to very conservative parents. I've always been drawn to entertainment. I was obsessed with anything like music related growing up. That led to being cast in musicals in high school, and I loved it. I loved every second of it, and I had made videos since I was a kid. And then when YouTube came out and I was aware of it, I was aware of it back in 2008. And I would watch people like Smosh and Shay Carl.
Briefly tell me what your role is in this Colleen Ballinger story from your perspective.
Early on, it was I'm the boyfriend of this Miranda person. And then that it took hold when I proposed and I made a video out of it. And then it skyrocketed, it changed, and then I had an audience. So then I definitely was perceived as like the boy next door, the guy that maybe you'll find a guy like Josh one day. And not to say that like I'm some great prize, but I knew how they were viewing me, and I tried to remain as authentic as I could. That evolved into now I'm the fiance. And look at all the things that he's doing. I wanted to put my heart into it. And there was a chunk that it felt perfect. Everything felt perfect. Then we got married. And when that happened, it just all kind of started going downhill. It became almost like they were watching a soap opera and trying to read between the lines. And I could feel that. They were making comments about what's going on. It feels different. The sad part is it was different. I started to feel almost like a character, like a sitcom character, like I was replaceable. One of the questions I would consistently get was, if you weren't married to her, what YouTuber would you want to be married to? And it always struck me odd, because I'm like, why would you even ask me that? Like, this is a real life. This is a real marriage. This is a real relationship. I don't sit here and think, well, if it's not her, which one would I want, you know? And so I would address that on camera and be like, we're not sitcom characters. This is real. So I'm not going to answer that question. And to then have it evolve into, real life, it did feel like I was swapped out. It did feel like I was replaced. And no one ever addressed that there's a new husband in the mix. I was there for 7 years and now I'm not. And everyone's okay with it. Maybe who I am and what I am has never had any value to them or even to myself. I am replaceable. That's a hard thing to swallow. When the public thinks that is one thing. When you feel like the person that you trusted most treated you like that, I mean, it crushed me. I mean, I was already an insecure person. I think most performers, in a way, are. We're always seeking some type of validation, some type of applause or good job.
Well, let me ask you really quick. When you became the husband, that everything just kind of went downhill from there. And so, are you speaking specifically just about the fandom, or was it once you got married to Colleen? Did the marriage also just seem to spiral downhill pretty quickly?
It was more about behind the scenes, that things were changing, and I couldn't stop it from changing. And I tried over and over and over to get us back on track. And I think people can see between the lines to an extent.
Much of the public knew that Josh and Colleen had dated from 2009 to 2015, and for the most part, they presented themselves as a happy, loving, carefree couple. But as we've learned time and again, what the public sees isn't always the reality of the relationship when the cameras are turned off.
Do you think, do you have a moment where you had a realization of now we're married and just something has changed? Was there some...
I don't think it was one single moment. Colleen and I always had a difficult relationship from the very beginning. It was very passionate and very explosive, but never truly consistent. And I was so infatuated that I just ignored the red flags and kept fighting for it, kept pushing to make things better. When you really love someone, you don't just let it go because it's hard. You adapt, you evolve, you compromise. I felt like I did that over and over and over. The thing that changed really was when we got married, it kind of felt like any effort to meet me in the middle stopped. How dare I ask for something? How dare I say, could you maybe not film tonight and just sit and have dinner with me? I tried to take us to couples therapy. She was very resistant. I was so down. I was so down. I don't mind talking about my feelings, obviously. She only went a handful of times, and I would always go, regardless if she would show up or not. And every single session, she didn't want to talk about her. It was always me, my problem, what I was doing wrong, what I needed to redirect in my brain. And it was infuriating and sad because it's just constantly just, you're wrong, not her, you're wrong.
What, like when you say things like, you know, she saying that you're wrong, what was that about? Just, was that about the content that you're making or how you were approaching the relationship, or?
I felt disrespected a lot in that relationship. There's a misconception out there that I was some controlling husband, boyfriend guy that was not supportive of what she did. And it always bothered me because I always rooted for her. I went to so many shows, I participated in videos. Yes, it helped me out too, but I never once said, don't do this. Don't take that show. Don't tour right now. I never ever guilted her for that. All I ever wanted was, hey, if you're gonna do this, can you talk to me on the phone? And it wasn't like, please talk to me for 2 hours a day. It was just normal. To me, it felt like a normal request. And that always evolved into difficult conversations, arguments, that I didn't understand, that I was selfish, that I have expectations that are unreasonable. And I started to believe all of that. But in retrospect, I wasn't asking for anything major other than a normal, what I would view as a normal kind of relationship with the person that you've been with for 7 years. And there were other times that I thought she was really rude. There was a lot of times where on her tours, the amount of times I had to apologize to the tech crew and the people running the event because of how rude she was to them. Almost like, I'm a queen, don't talk to me, talk to my assistant. And I would look at that and go, what are you doing? They're here it's their job. The least you could do is like give them eye contact and respond. She was just so either abrasive or just didn't care. And I could see it in the faces of the crew. And time again, at least 7 or 8 times, I said, I'm so sorry. She's having a rough week. It's not anything about you. And I would try to make excuses because I didn't want her to look bad. And then I would try to talk to her about it. And then it was me being wrong again. I don't know what she thought I was expecting her to be, but anytime I thought, wow, I wouldn't have spoken to them that way.
So on June 30th, 2023, the LA Times ran an article about the Colleen Ballinger saga, about Joshua David Evans opening up for the first time in years in response to Colleen's ukulele response video. This article cited a tweet of Joshua's which said, quote, "I was gaslit too." This was one of the first times a major press publication had ever discussed Joshua's own allegations against Colleen Ballinger. And here he was able to open up about it for the first time with anybody publicly.
Yeah, it just felt like whatever truth I thought was there, she denied that truth and made me feel crazy about it. Or how she would talk about fans, or what she would say about all the gifts that they brought. There was just so many moments where I thought, that's gross.
Would she talk negatively about fans to you behind the scenes? Was that something that happened or happened often?
I don't want to paint a picture like she was just this monster that just spewed hate towards her fans, because she quote loves her fans. I have a different interpretation of what love means to her, but there were a lot of times where she would talk negatively or make fun of someone or joke about what she was going to do with all the gifts on the tour bus. And I just thought to myself, I would never talk like that. These people are giving us a job.
Well, I'm curious because you just said that you have a different definition of love than she did, and I'm curious like what you mean by that. If you could just elaborate more on that.
She says she loves her fans. When you love something, there's a part of you that's selfless, or that's truthful, or that's just kind. And I didn't see a lot of that. And to me, it felt like she didn't really love them as people. She loved what they provided for her. She loved the attention. She loved the status. She loved, like, it gave her a thrill and she loved it. But do I think she truly loved her fans? I never really felt like she did. I think she just loved what it gave her. And one of the biggest times we had a fight was because of her fans. We were doing the Josh and Colleen tour. We had a husband-wife tour. And
what year was this? Do you remember?
January of 2016.
You guys ready for this or what?
Anytime like I had the mic and it was both of us on stage, and we both had different things we would do, and then we did stuff together. But when we would interact and I felt like I was ad-libbing a little bit and improving, I could tell when she did not want me to keep talking. She gave me a look on stage while I was doing it, because I had gone on for like 30, 45 seconds longer than we normally do about a bit. And on mic, I said, "Oh, I know that look. She wants me to shut up, guys." We went on, we finished the show. I got onto the tour bus first, When she came on the bus, I had never seen her so livid with me. Some of the eye contact that you saw in the ukulele video, kind of that a darkness in her eyes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of comments on people's perception of her look there.
I saw it all the time, especially in that moment. And she came in, and she's not really one to yell at me. She wasn't like that. If anything, she just completely ignored me. But this time she yelled, and she was like, "How dare you make me look bad in front of my fans? How dare you do that?" And I was sitting there thinking, what? I don't think I really made you look bad. I made a joke. It's like a husband-wife thing. Well, honey doesn't want me talking. Here I go again. But I was being honest too on stage. And in that moment, I realized she cares way more about how she is perceived than what the truth actually is. I got it. She let me have it. It was scary. I mean, it was scary because I'd never seen her really look at me that intensely before.
I think it's interesting that you said I'm assuming you were paraphrasing, but if she was saying something like, "How dare you do that in front of my fans," when it was a tour for the two of you, the idea behind that would be that it would be your shared fans. I was curious, if you felt like there was animosity or competition. Were there moments where it was just mutually supportive, or was it more of a one-sided thing, like these are my fans? Or can you walk me through that? Like, what was that like, having a relationship and you guys both creating together and separately in your own right?
I always felt like, because she made it obvious with her words and actions, that they were her fans. They were not mine. And when we decided to do a tour together as husband and wife, I thought, wow, she's really like looking at me like an equal. And it meant the world to me. I didn't want to be bigger than her, but the fact that it felt like it's 50-50, wow, I've never felt 50-50 with her before. And then she was very adamant about doing Miranda on the husband-wife tour. And I didn't understand that. Why do you need to do Miranda when it's billed as us? If you bring Miranda in it, it's just a Miranda show with us. That was one of the times that she did go to therapy with me, and the therapist sided with her. Why would you not allow her? Why would you have a problem with her doing that? And it made me feel like I was being controlling. And I didn't look at it as like trying to control her. I just thought, if we're really doing 50-50, why would you whip out this massive character? If I spoke up and said, I don't see why you're pulling that out. She just didn't understand, and she thought, you controlling, how dare you? This is what brought us here. This is what got us this tour.
We've seen evidence of her, making those types of claims to her fans. I'm curious, was that something that she said directly to you?
She might not have said the word, but she alluded to it countless times. There was one time where I was on my own tour and she was in Canada filming her show. And she just avoided talking to me for days. And we're married at this point. There was one time, I remember I was about to perform. I had an hour before the show, and I went back to my hotel room, and I finally got her on the phone. And all of this pain and like feelings of being disregarded kind of came to the surface. And I really just kind of let it out on the phone. Was I yelling at her? No. But I was very passionate in the way I talked, very upset. And what she told me days later is, I saw Eric, which is her husband now, right after I got off that phone call with you, and I told him, oh, well, I just got yelled at by my husband for 15 minutes.
Was that something that you felt was happening often, that she would go to him and share details of your relationship?
I don't know if she thought I was blind, but I saw it from the beginning. When she cast him, I remember all the other people that went through the cycle of that audition circuit. That character was supposed to be not conventionally like a good-looking guy. And when she started, wanting him, I thought, he's kind of a good-looking dude. You want him to play this character that's supposed to be like the male Miranda? And I thought, I can't say anything. She's gonna think I'm jealous. She's gonna think I'm controlling. I did bring up, that's odd that you're pushing for him when he's conventionally a good-looking guy.
Now, the person Joshua is talking about is actor Eric Stocklin, somebody we've mentioned often in this series but haven't covered anywhere near as much as Colleen or most of her inner circle. Now, Eric Stocklin is an actor who, during the early 2010s, popped up in smaller roles in shows like The Vampire Diaries, Bones, and Criminal Minds before he got his big break in a starring role on a Netflix show called Haters Back Off. What you might not know is that while she was working on this show's first season, she was married to Joshua David Evans. 2 weeks before that season came out, on October 14th, 2016, Colleen announced her divorce from Joshua, and less than 2 years after that, Colleen Ballinger got married again to her Haters Back Off co-star, Eric Stocklin.
There were just a lot of times that I knew she was hanging out with him. I knew that he had been over to her apartment in Canada, or that she went over to his place and, quote, everyone was there. It's just hard to talk about. There was a time right before the divorce happened, and it was VidCon, and she didn't stay at VidCon very long. She, at that point, kind of thought, I'm bigger and better than this. Well, I loved it, but she left and went back to our house that we had. Someone communicated and relayed to me, hey, while you're out at VidCon, she's having a few people over to the house. And I was like, who? And they said, Eric, Kory and a romantic interest, and Rachel and her boyfriend at the time. And I just thought it was weird. And so I was supposed to spend the night that night near VidCon because it was a long drive. Something in my gut said, no, go back home. So I finished the show, I didn't tell her, and I got in the car and I drove back. She kept messaging me like, are you in your hotel room? Where are you? Where are you? And within the last probably 15 minutes or so of the drive, I came clean and I said, I'm actually almost home. And when I walked through those doors, it reeked of alcohol and cigarettes, and no one was there. Nobody was there. And then I went upstairs, and she was sitting on our bed playing her ukulele. And I could tell she had some drinks in her. No big deal. Have a drink. It's your house. She smelled of smoke, and I was like, what's going on? Where is everybody? Oh, they had to go. They had to leave. And I just thought, just the red flags were popping off in my head. Like, why would you have everyone leave when you knew I was showing up? Unless you didn't want me to be around it. But the final words I said to her face, the last thing I ever said to her to her face, as I was leaving, I turned to her and I said, when you're effing Eric in our bed, I want you to think of me. And I said it right to her face, eyes locked, and her response was, it's not like that, he has a girlfriend. And then what was exposed very soon after was that they had started a relationship. It sucks. That's the last thing I said to her.
That's like if you have not said anything to her.
She threatened me a few months later through text that if I continued to talk about her in any way, shape, or form, is what she said. If you mention me in any way, I'm going to get lawyers on you. And my response to that was her branded slogan. All I said was, spread happiness. And that was the last thing I wrote to her, with a little sunflower, because that's what she always used.
On September 1st, 2023, Joshua and I hopped on Zoom for a few more questions I had for him. Namely, I wanted to get his reaction to what happened in part 3 of my Colleen docuseries, but I also wanted to get him to elaborate further on a few topics that he brushed on during our main interview. Even though that was 7 hours long, there were things I wanted more context on. So whenever you see this switch over to Zoom, that interview took place after the truth about John Silvestri came to light.
I was always uncomfortable with Eric and her relationship. Anytime I had an inkling, do you have a thing for that person? It only happened like 3 or 4 times, but every single time I had an inkling, it happened.
Sorry, when you say it happened, are you saying that she had cheated multiple times, like with different people, or?
In the first 3 months of us dating, I had this weird feeling in my gut that we were exclusive. We were saying, I love you. It was this whirlwind romance. I had this feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. I didn't know what it was. And I did a foul thing. She walked out, she was doing something, she left the apartment, and I pulled up the laptop that she was on and I read some Facebook private messages that she had been sending. And it broke my heart. I caught her sending back and forth messages to a guy that I had already brought up. Hey, who is this guy and why is he saying this kind of stuff to you? Like, I don't think that's appropriate. And she would always be like, oh no, he's gay or he's not into me. What I found was that in those messages, she was saying exactly to him what she had said to me when we were first starting to date and get to know each other. She was using the same catchphrases, the same, you're the best in the West. That sticks out to me because she used to say that about me, and she said it to him, and I confronted her about it. The next day, I was still upset, and I remember her saying, if this is how you're going to be, if you're not over this now, then I can't be in a relationship with you, period, if you're still going to be upset. And I thought to myself, but I'm upset because I caught you talking to another guy, all lovey-dovey, all sweet. Now you're upset with me for still being upset 24 hours later. But in that moment, it taught me, if I speak up about something that I caught that I didn't think was right, her response is, then I'm out. Then I'm gone. 2 months later, SWOOP, the same thing happened.
With a different person?
No, same person. He was saying, I'm so sorry. If I got you in trouble with your boyfriend, I'm so sorry. And she said, please don't apologize. Do not apologize. We can keep doing this as long as my boyfriend doesn't know about it. I have no problem with this. I should have known because she showed me who she was so early on. It left a mark that never went away.
How did that make you feel through all of the years that you were together?
I don't think this now because I've worked with a therapist. I thought it was my fault. The whole time I thought I did something to deserve this. Here's this amazing person. She has presented this amazing thing to me. It's my fault. I need to change how I view these things. I need to change. The biggest time she gave me an ultimatum was she just said nonchalantly, if you don't propose to me within a year, I'm done. And for me, I was like, I wish you didn't say that because I just, in my own self, got to that point. I just found that, and now you're giving me an ultimatum. Just feels icky, feels gross.
Throughout the course of your relationship, do you feel like she would make posts or remarks publicly that were targeted at you?
I think that she would post things knowing that I had verbally said that makes me uncomfortable. Hey, I saw on your Insta story, like, you're really flirting really heavy with your director for your Netflix show. Like, it's there for everyone to see. It's blatant flirtation. And then that would turn into me being controlling when I'm just sitting here going, you're not just like having fun. You're flirting and chasing this man down. The comments are saying that you're flirting. She knew the things that didn't make me feel great, and she would do them anyway. She's her own person. She can do whatever she wants.
Why do you think she would do those things, that knowing that it made you uncomfortable?
I think maybe she resented me.
Like, what would lead you to think she might have resented you?
She just didn't act like she liked me. She wasn't kind. She didn't make me feel seen. She didn't make me feel like I mattered. I didn't feel like I was in a relationship for the majority of the time. I felt like a shell. It would drive me crazy because people in the comments would notice, which made me feel even more embarrassed and more small.
According to Joshua, the last time he spoke with Colleen, she threatened him with legal action if he ever spoke about her or their relationship. He rarely directly spoke her name. However, Joshua did try to speak out a few times.
There was a common narrative that was kind of spread around you and Colleen at the time of the divorce, where people were saying that you just remained silent which isn't entirely true.
I have held my tongue for years, 2 or 3 years. I've held my tongue more than you know, and it's killing me. I'm just going to tell the truth. I want to tell you about my life, and I want to tell you about what really happened, and it might piss off a lot of people. It might piss off the subscribers, and it might piss off Colleen. It might piss off people in my family.
So I'm curious because you haven't shared much about your relationship. Why now are you sharing this?
This is the very first time in 6 or 7 years after it happened where I feel like if I were to say something, I'm not going to be attacked by hundreds of thousands of teenagers.
Right.
Now, when Colleen and Joshua got divorced, Joshua was almost immediately met with constant daily attacks in comments and in his DMs, as well as on gossip websites like Gossip Garden and Gossip Bakery. It's been rumored for years that Joshua, in response to the constant harassment, became obsessed with what people were saying about his divorce and began not so subtly trolling the gossip blogs for information. There are some interesting allegations relating to Joshua's mindset from this time period that we discovered after the initial interview, so I decided to ask him directly about it. We have seen a relationship that you had of sorts with a site called Gossip Garden and Gossip Bakery. These both ring a bell?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
There have been rumors for years that you were allegedly prowling these gossip sites, trying to get information about your relationship or your divorce with Colleen.
There were rumors going around that I had done bad things or that I cheated on her. And I was so upset by it that I would spend so much time searching, where is this coming from? Who's saying this? I'd get sent links. Hey, did you see this? Did you see this is being said about you? And I would hop on. I sure as hell would go look and see what was going on and what they were saying. Still feeling like I don't have a voice. I'm just watching, hoping that someone is going to see between the lines and see that a lot of what's being said isn't true. But yeah, I spent a lot of time. It was not good for my mental health because anytime I'd get something about me, I was fixated on it because I was getting so much hate from everywhere.
We've seen, some tweets and things that you may have been speaking in code on Twitter.
I mean, sure. There was a time where they were like, we think he's lurking. We think he is reading some of these posts. Josh, if you're reading this, post a picture of X. At the time, especially because this is when I was drinking very heavily, alone. There was like 2 times that I literally did the thing that they asked me to do. But if you were on that page, you knew exactly oh gosh, Josh is here, he is watching.
There was also a rumor that you may have been posting to these sites posing as your aunt.
No, I was not. I would put money on the fact that it probably was my aunt.
Have you ever talked to your aunt?
Nope. I never spoke to her about it. I have not had a conversation with any family member or friend about go to this site and say this type of thing. That never happened. There was a period within the first 6 months of everything happening. It was chaos and people were saying that I cheated, which I did not, or that I was not. One of my friends at the time, and I'm no longer close with this person, was adamant. You got to go in there, you got to create names, you got to create whoever you want to be and go drop the truth because this narrative is going to continue. It's going to continue and you won't have a way to fight against it. And, for a while I would sit there and really think about it. But then I thought there's no way I could get away with that. It was something that had crossed my mind many, 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 many times. If I'm being really honest with you, it doesn't make me look good. I wanted to create an account. I wanted to, especially like when I saw the evolution, when there's someone like an Ask Me Anything on Reddit that has been verified as someone in my life, and they have gone on to say things about me that I'm like, that's not true. And who are you? You're not getting the facts right, but they're accepting it as truth. That AMA sent me to a dark, dark place because what they were saying wasn't true about me. So now I don't have a voice, and if I even tried to have a voice, they'll be like, you're just trying to catch up from other people that got there first.
It is interesting. I don't want to make assumptions, but you had said something earlier where it sounded like, when she said, don't speak about me, don't say my name, all of those types of things. Did you feel that for a period of time, that there was a level of silencing that was being done to you in regards to being able to speak about your experience in that relationship?
I absolutely felt silenced. And I felt like I didn't know specifically then that she was orchestrating things, because what she presented online was not go after him. But what she was saying to people in DMs was, he's this, he's that, making fun of me, critiquing things, making claims about me that are not true, things that never happened. But anytime I did try to open up, the amount of hate, the passionate hate that I would get from the people online, it was just never ending. And even when I would stop talking about it or alluding to it, and I would post a normal thing about nothing regarding that, the comments would be full of it. Full of, go end yourself. You don't deserve to exist. I know where your next show is. I ended up hosting another end of VidCon party the next year, and the amount of death threats I got before that event terrified me, because at this point Christina Grimmie had been killed at a meet and greet at a venue that I had performed in. She was not even like a personality type. She's just a wonderful hearted singer that has so much to give. And I had the thought of, well, if someone is innocent and to me as pure as her, it happened to her, well, there's a lot of people that don't like me. I have to take it seriously. I can't just be like, it's nothing. They're just being dramatic. I didn't believe that. I was scared to go on. I was scared. I had to tell my manager at the time, and they gave me security. I had never had security before. And it was so daunting and weird to think the reason why I have security, just to go from backstage to the stairs of the stage, was because someone might try to do something. And then that catapulted into, my sister was getting those death threats. My little sister. I took it very seriously, and I got angry. I got so angry because I knew that Colleen was aware of it. And I'm like, she could say one thing and stop this.
I was going to say, she could have, just one statement, one tweet could go a long way to provide some security for you.
But that wouldn't serve a purpose for her. She's not willing to step out and say, don't do this to him. She liked it. Again, like that moment on the bus, how dare I make her look bad in front of her fans? It was that times a billion. This wasn't a little moment on stage. This is, hey, he might say that maybe I'm not the greatest person. Maybe I mistreat people. Maybe I'm very selfish. So let me paint him to be far worse than he could ever say about me, and I'll shut him up. It worked. I did shut up. Am I innocent? No. Did we argue? Yeah. Did I say things that I regret? Absolutely. There's also a part of like control that still exists in your own heart and in your head, where you feel like, I still have to vouch for this person. Because what if we work it out? What if things get okay? I don't want to badmouth her, because we could work through this. I always thought we can work through it. We made vows. That's serious stuff. There had been so many times throughout those 7 years before we were married, when we were dating, that people would sit me down and be like, what are you doing? She strings you along. She messes with your heart. She breaks your heart. And right when you heal and you're leaving, she pulls you back in. It's like you're a toy when someone else might have the ability to play with it. She didn't like that.
Now, if you've been watching my docs for a while, you might be familiar with the concept of power dynamics, which is how any kind of relationship, be it interpersonal or professional, is balanced by what each party can put into the relationship. And we've talked about power dynamics as they relate to fans and creators before, and how that power dynamic is inherently lopsided. It's very important to note that on virtually every level, there was a power imbalance between Colleen Ballinger and Joshua David Evans. Specifically, aside from the dynamic between a man and a woman, she was more powerful in virtually every regard than he ever could have been.
Something that I think has not been discussed very much is the power dynamic in your relationship with Colleen. And Colleen inherently just had that power imbalance because of her success and her celebrity, the notoriety, the fandom at her disposal. Is that something that you have thought about?
I was aware of it from the very first moment that we were like a thing. Because early on she made it known that if I had a different opinion of something, that it was not as important as her opinion of something. And I always kind of had to like succumb to what she wanted. From just dating to, big life things where we were living, whose job takes us somewhere. If I booked a really great job, well, she's not going. But if she booked a job, she was expecting me to go with her. And not only that, I was always made aware of it by comments. It's always been a thing that has been shoved in my face. My parents said during one of the times we broke up before we were engaged or anything, and they compared her to a train. And they said, this is the Colleen train. You either get on as a passenger or she's gonna leave the station without you. You're just on one of the cars. And if you decide that you can't handle certain aspects of her, it doesn't matter because she will leave the station without you and not look back.
We have to speak to the foreshadowing of that, right? The toxic gossip train.
My father used that metaphor. I hated hearing it because I knew everyone saw it. Everyone saw it from all walks of life, from all chapters and seasons of me. Everyone was aware that that dynamic was off. And that's why everyone was like, I know who you are, Josh. You're strong-willed. You do what you think is right. You're an independent person, but why are you neglecting all of that part of yourself in this relationship? Why do you let this relationship change you in that way? I was so in love with love. I was so in love with the idea of marriage that I thought if I make this commitment and she's the person I'm choosing, I'm gonna have to make it work and I'm gonna have to make compromises. And I did it to a fault from the very beginning. There was a long time where I felt like I deserved all the pain I got because I didn't listen to them. And I paid for it year after year after year while I was in it, and especially while I was out of it.
There was something that struck me a little bit ago when you said that you were in love with love. And as you've been talking about Colleen and your relationship, I don't know if you are aware, but you have had some distancing language. You spoke about the wedding, not our wedding. And you talked about this person and that you're with, not Colleen. And even down to saying you were in love with love, not I was in love with Colleen, I was in love with her. I wonder if that's something that you are aware.
Fully aware.
What's going on in your head when you speak that way?
I guess I distanced myself because I trained myself to always distance how I speak about it. Because anytime I said words, names, our, this, it was, you are not over it. You're all you do is talk about her. So I tried not to say her name. You know, I had rekindled my relationship with my now wife, and I didn't want to be saying her name. To me, it felt like that's at least the bare minimum respect I can give, is not just dropping my ex's name all the time.
You talked about what sounded like her kind of hanging the fandom over your head, almost in a way of weaponizing the fandom in your one-on-one experience with her. And we know from evidence that has come to light that she was weaponizing and trying to, like the Cody rant and the Adam, trying to get people to dig up things about you, to use the fans against you.
I knew she could always do it, but I didn't want to believe that she was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought they are having their own perceived truth of this. The more and more that I started seeing comments like, you are abusive, you abused her, and I'm like, what? Who would say that? Why would anyone say that I did that? Unless it was told to them. Then your brain goes a million miles an hour, and I think, well, the only thing I think would have done that is someone from that side was saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't true. It wasn't just these random fans coming up with an opinion themselves. Things are being fed to them. I always had a problem because I thought, if the roles were reversed, if I, after a year of marriage, divorced her and then married someone that I worked with and then completely erased any notion of her, never spoke of her ever again, would the public be on my side the way that they're on her side? The answer is no. They would drag me through the mud, honestly, because they should, in my opinion. But in this situation, it feels sexist. And I can't say that. Guys can't say that it's sexist.
You can,
I'm afraid to say things like that.
And I can understand that fear.
Nothing good would come of it.
Yeah.
I know that. Well, maybe now it might be a little different.
I think it has changed. The conversation around male victims existing has changed significantly. I've done a lot of work around that, around advocacy for male victims, and I think people are learning that victims are genderless. There's no specific identity, and so if you lived through it as a man, that's just as valid as anyone else. So you are within your right to speak about that. And I think that those types of conversations are really important.
I just felt like there was no hope and that my name was just going to be slandered forever. That's another thing that led to such a deep depression in my life. No matter how right I thought I was or how misconstrued I thought things were, it didn't matter. My truth didn't matter. What I felt didn't matter because I'm the guy and I can't say this because they'll just attack me more. She's the angel and here I am, a villain who just wanted a marriage to work because I fought so hard and because I was so hurt and devastated. Now not only did I lose that marriage, that relationship, I lost that family. I was very, very close to every single one of them. I loved them. My family's not close like that.
Mm.
And I felt like I had a family.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost all of them like that. And I loved them. Mm-hmm. I truly did. Rachel, I loved Rachel so much. She was like one of my best friends. And then I lost myself. I lost everything. I lost my career. I lost everything that I built. I lost my passions. I lost everything. But if I say anything online that emotes that shows that, once again, I'm a little opportunist who's trying to use that situation to gain sympathy and to gain views.
You said that you could have taken half and you chose not to. Can you tell me why?
We didn't have a prenup because I said to her face, I will never take anything. I'm not here to take from you. And I kept my word. I chose not to take half because if she didn't want me, she didn't want me. And that was clear. So why would I want her to pay me money? I put a lot of years of my life into that person and that family, and I'll never see that again. And it's gone. So I didn't take money because I didn't want her money.
You had mentioned to me privately your thoughts about the divorce video.
Making that divorce video was traumatizing. She had just told me, I'm making a video to announce this and I'm releasing it in a few days. And I said, can we wait? Because you just threw this big thing on me. I didn't see it coming. I don't want to make a video about this. Can we like just not say anything and like work on how we're going to discuss this? And she said that would interfere with her launch for her show. And she did not want anything to take momentum away from her Netflix show. And that she was making a video, whether I liked it or not, and that it was going to go out on this specific day. And she started saying the things that she wanted me to say.
So did you feel it? You felt then like your hand was kind of forced in that?
I was backed into a corner. She knew that she had the power. She knew that she had the masses behind her, and she knew that she could say anything that she wanted to say. I felt so used, cast aside. It's like, why did I not see it coming? This is the person she's always been, and I have just forced myself to believe that she was better than that.
Throughout the time I've spent researching this world, there is one thing that I've discovered that I never expected. Colleen Ballinger has always had her finger on the pulse of her fandom to an almost troubling degree. Now, due to her participation in group chats, she is just as aware of what her fans are going through as they were aware of what she was going through, according to her. She treated her fans as close friends, whether it was appropriate or not, and would use them for information on what was being said about her, or her friends, or her enemies.
Do you think that she is watching everything that's been happening right now? Do you think she tunes into the coverage? What do you think is going through her head right now?
As much anger as I feel towards her, I know what she's feeling. Even now, I don't wish that on her, because I know that when we were together for 7 years, that the worst thing that could happen to her is if she lost her fans. I can't imagine the depths of what she's feeling, and I know it's not good. I do worry. So I feel like a wuss saying this. I worry about her. I don't want, she's got kids. She's got babies, and I don't wish pain on her. And I know she's feeling it. I know she feels like everything that she ever had crashed. This is coming from a guy that it already happened to me. I lost everything. I fell in love with an image that she gave me, and I held on to that image even though all the cracks started within a month. I held on to the image and I fought for the image. But to like think of her now, there is no image that she can put on. She can't hide anything. People see now. Adam even said, you know, the mask slipped. Mm-hmm. I think it's true. And I think she never thought it would happen either. I hope that there's someone in her life that she'll listen to. But to be honest, I don't think she has those people in her life.
At this point in my conversation with Joshua, a few things became clear. Now, of course, there was the distancing language and all the allegations of mistreatment, but he also would often say things that almost sounded protective of Colleen. And in listening to all of this, there was one question that I couldn't shake from my mind.
You said that there was an image of her that you loved.
Yeah.
Did you ever love her?
Yeah, I did. I fought for the image because I did see the good stuff. I did see the positive things about her. She wasn't always fully this. And the more fame that happened and the higher she rose to the top, the more she leaned into, I don't have to change a damn thing about myself.
Do you think the way she is being characterized now, do you think that that's accurate?
I feel bad answering this question. Because I don't want it to come off like I'm on here to like bash her and drag her. She's got enough of that happening without me needing to chime in. If I'm being honest with myself and honest with you and anyone watching this, I think this is the truest depiction of her that has ever been seen publicly. This is the most authentic version of her that has ever been publicized. What I'm seeing, like especially in that video, the ukulele video, that's a version of her that I know. I know that person. I lived with that person. I saw those eyes. I think everyone has the ability to change, look inward, do the hard work. I just don't think she has ever stepped up to the plate to do that.
I'm going to be completely honest. This next section brings someone into the situation I never expected to be named in this interview.
You had mentioned before about the divorce video. Was that a 10 steps ahead moment?
I'd say that it was at least a 3 steps ahead, maybe not 10. The divorce happened very suddenly. Things were bad. I knew things were off. And we were arguing all the time. She didn't ever want to talk to me. She didn't ever want to like talk through it because she was either out of town and wouldn't talk to me out of town, or when she was always busy. Busy. I was shown some things when I was at Playlist in Washington, D.C. in 2016. Receipts, proof of things that she was doing.
Can you tell me what you're referring to?
Part of me still wants to protect her. Because what she was doing was awful.
At the very least, can you tell me what it has to do with?
This specific one was what she was saying about me behind the scenes on our honeymoon to another massive YouTuber. She basically said, I told Josh some things and he wrecked our hotel room.
She told this to another large
Very
creator.
large YouTuber, yes.
Okay. Can I ask who that was?
Why not? It's Shane Dawson.
Okay.
We went on our honeymoon and we decided while we were in Hawaii, let's go to the beach with no cameras. And let's say new vows that are just for us. No one else will hear them, see them, experience them. And it was one of the most beautiful moments at the time in my life. To know that within 24 hours of us saying our vows all over again, she's telling one of the biggest YouTubers at the time that she said some stuff to me, I didn't like it, and broke things when we didn't have a single fight on that trip.
This is what she told Shane Dawson.
Yes.
What actually happened?
None of that
Were
happened.
you told something and then you got emotional or?
No. There was no fight, there was no argument. It was actually a really pleasant honeymoon experience. We didn't have any altercations, we didn't have anything. I was at Playlist. I had just had dinner with her family. She wasn't there. She was off doing some other thing. And then Steve Green was there with his now wife, Nikki, and they waved me over. And I said, okay, cool. We were just talking and laughing and just having a good time away from screaming teenagers. And then Nikki stopped and said, I can't hold this in anymore. And Steve was giving her a look like, no, don't do this. And she looked at me, and I'm paraphrasing here. She said, I'm supposed to hate you. But after spending just a few minutes with you, I don't, and I'm confused because the things that I've been shown about you don't add up to the person I'm talking to and the person that Steve says you are. She pulled out her phone, or it might have been his phone, but it was one of their phones, and they slid it across the table. And I'm like, what's this? And she just said, read it. And it was about me. And I was like, what is this? And they said, it's a screenshot of a text message between Colleen and Shane Dawson. And I looked at the date, and I'm like, that's during our honeymoon. She texted that during our honeymoon, that I abused her, that I went ballistic. We didn't even have a fight. We didn't have an argument. She said, I'm not the only one that has this. This text has been passed around.
Who was passing it around? Was it Shane or was it Colleen?
Shane sent it. I don't think Colleen did.
Okay.
I mean, that's me assuming, but.
But you know that Colleen texted this to Shane,
I
and
saw
then
both of
that
their interaction.
screenshot
Yes.
started getting shared with other.
Every YouTuber I could think of at that time that I'm like, oh, so they all sit here and think that I went crazy on a honeymoon when nothing happened. And in that moment, that's when it all dawned on me, why in the world did you think that you were safe when she did that kind of thing about everybody else? Everybody else, she had shit to say.
That was a common thing that she would do.
All the time. It's like a sport for her. She's a pro athlete when it comes to that. And we wrapped up the conversation and like we hugged and I excused myself to the hotel room, my hotel room, just me. And I sat there and like, I remember looking at my phone and it was a picture of us from our honeymoon. And it went dark and it just fell and thudded on the floor. And I sat there, the sun had pretty much gone down. I sat there facing a wall with the phone on the ground, just going, what have I got myself into?
Why do you think that she would send this message to Shane?
This is something I've never figured out. Because when I got wind of that, then I started seeing more stuff. And that wasn't the only thing. She would make fun of me, dog on me, say I was embarrassing to her.
Just as a reminder, I've reached out to Colleen Ballinger for comment on all of this, and she has not returned comment. This is genuinely something that I'd like to hear her point of view on, and I am fully acknowledging that what we just heard is Joshua's perspective on the matter.
I had a show with Julian Solomita and Arnold Telegaarda, and we had a little parody group called The Shadows.
The Shadows, yes.
And it was a joke. It was supposed to be a joke. It's like, we're aware of who we are. We're aware we're in the shadows, so let's make a whole thing of it. Tons of YouTubers went on like a big party bus. I found out that later she was talking so negatively and just mean about me and how embarrassing that was, and that she had warned me not to do a show like that.
When you said that there was a big party bus and these YouTubers and everything, do you remember what show that was?
That was the opening show of Shadow Tour. We only did 2 shows.
The Irvine show then?
Yeah,
okay.
California.
So while she's with you, there seemingly to support you.
Right.
And you're saying that she was basically talking about you to these YouTubers who were all there to also watch the show.
And she might try to twist it and say she was just poking fun. That's a lot of how she would do things, is like, I'd call her out on certain things. She'd be like, you're taking it so seriously.
Can you give me an example of like what she would call poking fun that you felt was like, maybe disrespectful or?
I don't say she'd make fun of me, but she would just belittle things that I would ask for, as if like the audacity. Are you serious? And I'd feel so small. I sure feel like it. She sure makes me feel that way every time. She's making fun of me. She's sending things and making fun of me. And then that came out too about like them saying I plagiarized a song on my album that I never plagiarized. I never did. But the fact that she made it a whole joke, her and Johnny made a whole joke of it, and then she added that song into her show and like made it like a thing. I think it's just a normal thing that she does.
First, thank you for sharing that. And I think that
I've never said any of that stuff. So I want you to know, like, I'm scared that I just said that. I'm not gonna tell you to edit things out, but I'm scared. I'm scared because I've seen what she can do behind the scenes and how that affected my life, every aspect of my life. See, I go back and forth from like wanting her to be okay to also fearing her. I'm afraid of her. I'm afraid of what she'll nitpick about this.
Fear. That's one of the most common emotions I've heard throughout covering this story. It's a word Adam McIntyre has brought up in regards to simply being believed. It's something Becky and Oliver and Alex have all expressed to me. Many members of the Colleen fandom who have spoken to me off the record have expressed it. Bella, who anonymously spoke against John Silvestri in part 3 and has recently come forward publicly on Twitter, also has expressed fear throughout this. And now here we have Joshua David Evans. And one thing all of those people have in common is being afraid. And that fear directly relates back to the power of Colleen Ballinger.
She'll say I'm lying. She'll say it's not true. And somehow that'll get around to the certain type of people that will then come after me again. So I want to be honest with you and answer your questions, but I also want to make a point that I'm freaking terrified that I just said that stuff.
Do you feel like you might in some way still be under her spell, so to speak?
Oh, I'm not under her spell, but I do feel like I am still within the bounds of her control. That spell wore off, and I now absolutely see what role I played in it. Like, it also says a lot about who I am as a person to welcome that into my life year after year after year, where if anyone came to me and said, I'm dealing with this in my relationship, what should I do? My advice would have always been, get the hell out. What are you doing? But I didn't do that for myself. So no, I'm not under a spell, but I do still to this day feel like she has control of the narrative. She has control of what happens to me. And I really don't know how to get away from it other than what I've done with my life now, which is peace out and get away from having other people be a part of my life in that way. I'm very closed off. I don't trust people. I never used to be that guy. I was always almost like the golden retriever in the room. It's always like, everything's good. Cool. I know that you beat me yesterday, but I'm gonna come love on me today. Not saying that she beat on me. I mean, there were times that she definitely smacked me around, but not like we were fighting and she smacked me. I'm not saying that.
Well,
you just shifted on that one.
I'm gonna ask, was she physically?
We would never get into an altercation where she would smack me or anything like that, but playfully, she would roughhouse with me. It was more consistent than I wanted to believe, because people were like, people screenshot and like make compilation videos, and they're like, well, look at all the times that she's done this. On the honeymoon, she sprayed sunscreen in his eyes, and look at this where she smacked his chest really hard, or look at this where it's very known in our relationship that I didn't want her like touching my butt all the time, especially out in public. I'm insecure. I was always uncomfortable having any attention put near there, and she would always try to like mess with me back there, and that's playful. But she also knew that it made me really uncomfortable.
Did you ever express to her that it made you uncomfortable?
Trust me. Oh yeah, about like the butt thing? Sure, yeah.
And she would still continue to do
there's
it?
even a vlog where she does it, and then you can see that I'm not happy and I walk away, and she's still filming. And then she says, he doesn't like it when I do that, but I'm being a brat and I keep doing it. So she acknowledges.
It doesn't matter you being a man. That's not a factor. If you set a boundary about where someone can touch your body or how they can be in your personal space, I can see you you're crossed. Sorry. Everything is crossed on your body.
I just don't want it to. I think she's got so much on her plate. I don't want to add another thing.
Let me stop you for a second when you say that. It's not your responsibility to feel like you're adding something to someone else's plate when you're telling your story. So if this is your story, if this is your truth, you are a whole human being, just like she's a whole human being. We all are. And if these are things that you have felt and that you haven't expressed, or you haven't felt like you were able to, you are entitled to.
I never looked at it like it was some problem, because we had far deeper problems than that. I think maybe if we didn't have those other problems, I would be like, why do you smack me all the time? But I never viewed it that way. But if I think about my relationship, my wonderful, amazing marriage that I'm in now, we don't do that. When I think of it that way, then it's like, oh, well, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a part of that. There are normal relationships where you have consent and you respect each other, and you know what's too far and what's just playing, and that dynamic does not exist in my marriage with Pamela.
I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone who is deeply affected by this story, but is often left out when it comes to discussing who this all impacts, and that person is Pamela. Pamela is Joshua's current wife. They've known each other for decades and have been married since 2018, and it is Pamela who witnessed and stood by Joshua during some of the darkest moments in his life. By her own words, it was Pamela who stepped in to be a source of strength for their family. Pamela who would put her hand on his chest while he slept day in and day out to make sure he was breathing, and Pamela who stood by him when he chose to face his participation in this story. Like Joshua before, Pamela has also been relegated to the shadows in conversations about her more famous spouse, often referred to as just the other woman or the new wife. It's not uncommon to see hurtful comments made about her whenever Joshua would speak up, with parts of the fandom putting words in Pamela's mouth because she has never spoken out publicly. that is until today. Now, Pamela and I spoke on the phone for about an hour. She is her own person who I believe is often disregarded in this story and has asked to speak with me in her search for peace. Now, I'm going to be real. It was a very emotional call. Pamela shared a lot of tears, a lot of concerns, but most of all, compassion. Through all of the fear and pain that Pamela has experienced over the years, I was taken aback by the profound level of empathy that she had for everyone involved and her desire for healing. And a couple of days after our call, Pamela decided that she wanted to share a statement with me, which I would like to read in full for all of you now. Quote, "At the core of my heart is a desire for people to have peace and for everyone to live from a place of humanity and kindness. You never really know what a person is going through and the profound effects your words and actions can have on them and their lives and the people close to them. There are so many things I could say and have wanted to say throughout the years and even recently. I have chosen to keep things close and focus on taking care of and protecting our family, our little safe bubble, and our mental health. I love Joshua with all of my heart, and I am so grateful for and admire how hard he has worked to overcome some very heavy and dark times, choosing not only to live, but also to strive for peace and goodness, all while continuing to learn and grow in the midst of it all. My hope and wish for my husband, myself, our family, and everyone involved is for peace, healing, and to be able to close this chapter, move forward, and be good to one another." Regardless of what your opinion might be on the people directly involved in this story, I think it's important we always try to remember that these stories have far-reaching effects that impact more than just the central people involved, and that just because Pamela has been quiet until now does not mean she's not affected. Pamela is deserving of a safe space and healing just like all of the others who have been hurt, and I hope that we can all extend her the same compassion as she is. So Pamela, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your words with us, even when you did not have to. I know that this has been a very stressful time for you, and I just hope that everyone shows her the kindness that she deserves. And now the moment that many people have been waiting for, the questions that we asked Joshua about Colleen's alleged toilet cleaner, Kory Desoto. Because in case you didn't know, Colleen Ballinger's best friend in the world is a man who is also her assistant, somebody she has called her soulmate, who has lived with Colleen at her house over the course of 2 marriages now. Now, Kory has his own allegations, which are a story for another day, but I was curious about what life for Joshua was like with Colleen's real number one, Kory Desoto. What was life like with Kory Desoto?
It was hard because I never felt like I had a marriage or a relationship. I felt like I was a part of something plus him, and I was there too. Everywhere I look, there he is. I wake up in the morning, there he is. I go to bed at night, he's going into his room. She had made a post on Instagram and she said that, this is my soulmate. And I remember looking at that and being like, well, I would never say that about anybody other than my person.
Do you think that was directed at you in any way,
I think she always knew what she was doing. And then she played this kind of like naive, what? That made you upset? Oh, I would never think that. And it's like, but you know the word soulmate is a pretty big word to say to somebody. You just got married and your soulmate is Kory Desoto.
And now for the part of the interview where I hold true to my word that in exchange for hearing him out on his painful experiences, I would make Joshua hear me out on all the things that he has verifiably done wrong. This is the part where I ask Joshua directly to take accountability for his actions. I have seen some comments saying how it is problematic to platform someone who admits to doing bad things. Why? Why is that problematic? The thing is, I think it would be problematic to ignore the people that this story directly affects. And each of them have expressed publicly or privately that they want to hear directly from the people who failed them and that they want them to take accountability. For whatever reason, Joshua is the only one who is even attempting to do this right now. He has said that doing this on his platform would be detrimental to his mental health. So I have to ask then, why not here? Why not now? I've sat for nearly 24 solid hours worth of interviews with Adam, Joshua, John, Becky, Oliver, Alex, Soph, Bella, and others, and it has been insightful and also I mean, it's been exhausting. This has been a long process for a lot of people, but this isn't for me. This is for every person affected in this story who deserves to hear it straight. These people failed them. And this is what accountability could look like if we're open to it. So you be the judge.
Okay, so this isn't going to be fun. You know, my team and I have been obviously digging into everything about this story, and the Miranda Sings character, the content, what you have been involved in. You did say something to me off camera that was interesting to me in regards to talking about these more difficult topics where we're going to talk about accountability. And you had said that this is kind of the easiest thing for you to talk about. And I'm curious why, what about this that we're going to get into is easier in your opinion?
I didn't know if I was going to talk about this, but the way you phrased the question, I'm just trying to be as transparent as I can, and the one thing popped in my head. I was for a very long time after all this happened, to the point where I had a handwritten will in my pocket for Pamela, my wife. I was very much at peace with the idea, that's a weird way to say it, that if I go, I go. The reason why I say that is because when you're there and you have given up everything that comes along with that, when you decide, no, I'm going to get up, I'm going to choose something else. When you truly make that choice, you also have to make the choice of, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to face myself. So if I'm going to face my demons, I have to face all of my demons, not just the ones I want to deal with, that feel easy to deal with. I've done a lot of hard work on myself, and I'm very proud of that. And it took me years of work of becoming sober and dealing with any lies that I would perpetuate myself, and isms I had within myself, excuses I would make. I had to face each one by one. And before I decided to live, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't ready to do that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted out. I just wanted out. I was tortured when I was awake. I was tortured when I was asleep. I had no escape of the kind of thoughts that were always in my head after all of this happened. So there are things that I am responsible for and took part in, that I needed to say to myself, you did that. You could have stopped it. You could have not done it. You could have said no. You could have just walked away, and you didn't. So if you're going to continue on, let's be the best version that you can be. And the only way that happens is if I do the work to do it. So when I say it's easy for me to talk about, I don't mean like it's nothing and it holds no weight. It's more that I've been through this thought process. I have exposed the worst parts of myself to the people I care about the most. I've already gone through the guilt and facing it and pointing fingers at myself every single day and hating myself to my core. So if we need to talk about things, let's talk about them.
I think that there are a lot of people, could say thousands, hundreds of thousands, who think that this is a long time coming.
Sure.
Very briefly before I do, you said one thing that I would like to ask you about. You said that you were tortured. Was that in reference to what you went through with Colleen?
Yeah. Again, I don't talk about this. I saved myself for marriage, and I gave it to her. So this wasn't just, hey, this public relationship that was benefiting you crashed and burned. It was your whole life's goal and standards you set for yourself and gifts you thought you were saving meant nothing, meant absolutely nothing. You're a joke. I remember right when it happened and I took a month off from YouTube, I went home to Georgia to be surrounded by family. The first place I walked into, it was like an Applebee's. I sat down and TVs were playing. I look up and my face is on the screen. And I felt so embarrassed. I felt so exposed. I had been used to people recognizing me, but now it's different. And so I can't go and have a meal without seeing it. Aren't you now the ex-husband? Aren't you that guy? What really happened? When my eyes were open, I was tortured. I couldn't go anywhere online without being told every day that I'm nothing, that I did deserve it. Everyone was just attacking me. And then when I would try to sleep, I would shut my eyes and it felt like 1,000 channels were going off in my mind. And every single channel was a channel designed to make me hate myself more. And I just felt no release. I felt no way of escaping any of it. And that's when drinking became a whole different thing for me. It became the only thing that chilled my mind out enough. And it was okay and manageable at first. But then it took over and it became the thing that I needed. I needed that more than I needed anything else. There was no out for me. That's why eventually I started looking at alcohol as like, cool, if you take me out, at this point I'm okay with it. So yes, I felt tortured. I was absolutely tortured. So.
Well, I would like to revisit that, what you just shared a little bit later.
Sure.
And I appreciate you being open about that experience. Being able to discuss is not an easy thing to share. And I know that personally, how difficult that is and what a dark place that is. And it is a pit of hell that I would wish on no one. So yeah. I appreciate you opening up about that. I think it takes a lot. If someone hasn't experienced that darkness, it can be a little hard to understand just how severe those emotions are. But I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, as you said,
yeah, let's get to the nitty-gritty.
Now, much of Joshua's struggles with mental health and alcoholism is well documented after his divorce with Colleen Ballinger. He's made content dealing with it, he's tweeted about it, and if you're familiar with the content in part 3 of my docuseries, you know that it was sadly weaponized against him by people like Jonathan Silvestri. It's disgusting and should never happen regardless of the circumstances. But putting all of that aside, so to speak, even though everything is ultimately intertwined, it's time for accountability of Josh's own behavior over the years.
Just as you had experienced pain, there are things that you have done that has contributed to pain in others. It is important that we talk about this.
Okay.
I know that Miranda Sings the content was catered for 13 to 21-year-olds. You had said that in an interview clip that we found. And the fact of the matter is, the content was inappropriate. As it evolved almost top to bottom, that was just seemed like the constant underbelly to that content for reasons that even I'm still trying to understand why that would be the approach. So I am curious, and I think a lot of people would like to know what drew you to that content, and how did you get to a place where you felt that it was appropriate for you to participate?
When I discovered her, before we had ever spoken, she probably had 2 or 3 videos out, period. That was it. They were not what they are now. And I was very intrigued with what kind of mind would create this. I was more intrigued with her than the character. I wanted to know her. Because those original shows that she would do were for, the audience was older. The audience was college and up. And the Broadway scene, that's where she started. And it was definitely like we were the youngest ones in the room for a lot of it.
There was a lot of people in my program who were just had the characteristics of Miranda, the character that I do.
Which are what? It's cocky?
Cocky, and just, they talk like this. And just like, they just thought they were so good, and they would record themselves singing songs and post it online for everyone to see, and no bad comments, they only wanted good feedback.
But then slowly it shifted, because her content started getting passed around to not just the theater community. It started becoming more mainstream. I would chime in every now and then at the beginning and say, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure that's okay? You sure that's the kind of thing you want to post?
Let me ask you, though, let me jump in, because if you say, you were periodically, let's say, jumping in, kind of chiming in, are you sure you want to do this? Was that more so from the perspective of, is this a good PR move?
It was very much kind of me going, is this where you want to take it? But then I also felt like I can't speak up because, of course, I'm the one with the problem. I'm the one with an issue with it. It doesn't ever go well when I speak out against certain things and choices. And so I became very complicit. Very complicit. It got worse and worse and worse. The uncle jokes kept happening. I kept going to shows as just her partner, not even in the show. And I would see the audience change and get younger and younger and younger.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in it and you're living in it every day, and she's filming every day around you, I'm not saying this is okay, but you become numb to it in a way. And she asked me to be involved in certain videos, and I said yes. And I'll be honest with you, the reason I said yes was because I knew if I appeared in videos, it would help me too. It would expose me to a bigger audience, which means maybe I can do YouTube full time.
So if you're saying that you knew, okay, this is getting bad, this has escalated beyond anything that you ever thought it would, and you're saying, I would never do something like that, but then you do, and you start to participate.
Right.
And then you say, you participated in this, you start making those bad things that I would never do. What I'm hearing is that you were willing to create this inappropriate content for views.
I was willing to participate in things that were inappropriate because it was going to benefit me. It's going to benefit me professionally and financially.
Did it occur to you at the time when you're like, I would never do that, but now I'm doing it because I'm getting the views? Did you have pause and think, holy shit, this is also really awful?
I did have a lot of pause, and I was a coward. And I gave up trying to interject, and then I fully embraced it for myself. Was I writing the content? No. Was I suggesting the content? No. Was I in it, participating, adding to it? Absolutely. Yes. Because again, at the time, you're surrounded with it. It is, unfortunately, very normalized. Things that you think you will never do or be a part of becomes very normal when everyone's cheering, everyone's clapping, everyone's laughing. The views are getting bigger. The shows are getting bigger. And these jokes are killing it. You become desensitized to a point where like, well, maybe it's not that bad. But when you get out of it, when you're not in that dynamic anymore, when I was removed, I didn't remove myself.
Do you think you would have removed yourself at some point, or you would have just continued to do that content?
Absolutely.
And I'm curious because, you know, we're talking kind of, there's these parallels, right? You know, you're participating in the content, but you were also participating just on a no cameras around life happening, and you were in these tiny chats and the group chats, you know, running around town. I'm not sure if you saw, but Adam just did a live stream today of a video that was sent to him, and it's on a fan's channel. They had done a vlog video with you and Colleen, and
London.
It looks to be in Europe, and you and Colleen are hanging out with these two in a hotel room for quite a period of time, and you're at a restaurant together, but you were alone in a hotel room with them, and then they looked like they were maybe backstage or they were attending a show that happened in that same trip. And, you know, in certain degrees, I hear what you're saying when you're talking about, okay, things kind of spiraled, they escalated with the content, but the content has a stop and a start, you know, start and a stop button when you're recording, and you go through the edit process, you put it out there. So that's one area that's problematic, you know, at best. But then when we look at, you're actually physically living life, taking the photos and the video that we saw, you know, you're sitting on the couch kind of squeezed up next to who quite literally says, this is uncomfortable or this is awkward. You can hopefully understand why there's so much confusion and hurt and anger and question about not just how do you get to a place where you're willing to make this content for views and to exploit for clicks and likes and sponsors and all of that, but also carry it into real life. How do you go from I would never do that to now I'm doing that in content to oh now I'm squeezing up next to on a sofa who says this is uncomfortable?
First I'll say none of it's right. None of it's okay. I remember early on in those stages, she had a tight clique, an original clique called the Cookies, I believe they were called. She would have these tiny chat conversations. There'd be plenty of times that I'd be like, oh, cool, I'll hop in, and I'd hop in. It felt innocent at the time, and then it just kept progressing. I normalized it in my head, and I said, well, this is not, I didn't start this, I'm just in the background. And I made excuses, not that it's okay, but it didn't feel like the topics were inappropriate, even though the situation was inappropriate. I remember Colleen saying, they're gonna meet us at this place. We're gonna have, it's a chicken place.
How did you know to have this meeting even scheduled?
They were part of the original fan group, the Cookies, I believe. And if I'm not saying the right name of the group, it was that Colleen's
Cookies, yes.
Yeah. When she had shows in Europe, they made plans to meet up. I didn't make that plan. I was there with her and absolutely participated. I absolutely never said you shouldn't do this. I, again, in my mind, had normalized that this was okay because it's out in public. I know.
But you were in a hotel room with
right.
these, yeah.
No, right.
I mean, I do have to kind of interject a little bit though, because I think it's a little more than it wasn't weird. I think it was extremely weird and very concerning. And how do you go from like, oh, I've got these fans that I'm getting this attention from and I'm getting the clicks and likes and this feels so good, to let's meet up with them, to let's go to our hotel room. How does that happen and still have the rationale of thinking, oh, this is no big deal?
I guess because none of it's right. I'm not saying it's right. If it was an awkward picture taken and I thought it was funny, it's not funny. It's wrong. What I remember from that time was we're gonna go and meet them and have lunch. And that was all that was told to me. Then in the middle of that...
Who was telling you this? Colleen?
Yeah. Okay. And then that progressed to, hey, do you guys just wanna come back to the hotel? Or it wasn't a hotel, it was a flat.
Is there much of a difference?
Probably not.
In your opinion?
Probably not. In me not saying, Colleen, we can't have them come in here. We can't do that. You have to tell them to go. I didn't say that. I didn't do that. Looking back on it, I would say, what the hell were you doing? There were a lot of times that I should have just put my foot down and said no. But I, again, pushed that all down and normalized it for myself and made decisions that when I look back on them, I am appalled at things that I didn't stand up to and didn't choose to see a bigger picture there. There are things that are far more important that I just did not look at in the way that I should have then. I regret those choices.
You mentioned the tiny chats. In my interview with Johnny, he mentioned that you and Colleen and I believe maybe even Kory would spend 4 to 5 days a week, 2 to 3 hours a day in these tiny chats.
I would not put myself in the same grouping as the amount of times he's saying. They were doing tiny chats with or without us being a part of it.
They meaning?
They being that little crew of fans.
Okay.
It was very known that a group of them would hop on and do this a lot. And they would tweet to us all the time, hop on, we're chatting, we're talking about you, hop on, it would be so cool if you hopped on for 5 minutes. It was just constant. So I always knew when they were on because they would let me know that they were on. The amount of times I was a part of it compared to how Colleen was, because Colleen was initially the first one to be involved in that. It's a vast ratio yes, I was in it, absolutely. But was I doing it as consistently as I saw her doing it? No.
Well, how often were you doing it?
When I look back on that time, I would say I participated in 5 to 10 amounts, 5 to 10 times.
Like in total?
In total.
Through the whole...
Yeah, it was not I'm hopping on every day with them. I knew they were on every day.
And if you're saying 5 to 10 times, for how long?
For a span of like a year that I knew they were doing it. It's a weird place to be in. At the time, it was like the right thing to do is to interact with those people, to encourage them to watch more of your stuff, hope that they would share it with their friends, and that you would slowly build a fan base. Meet and greets were always huge. Giveaways were always huge.
One of the things that Johnny had brought to my attention was, and he said this, I believe, publicly as well, that there was an instance of you turning off your camera and that you had changed your name to Johnny and then kind of appeared as a surprise towards the end of the chat. What's the story there?
This was during the time where every night I was getting, we're on chat. I think, and they would say, I think Josh is in the chat. He's in the chat. I wasn't on the chat. And it was just constant. When I hear, oh, it happened every night, it did, but not with me in it. It got to be a thing where, is Josh in the chat or is Josh not in the chat? I can't tell. This person sounds like Josh. And I made a terrible mistake that I look back on and I think is creepy as hell that I did it. I thought, I'm going to go on, but I'm not going to say I'm on because I want to see what they'd say. I want to see what they say when they don't think I'm there. Lighthearted. Not like, oh, I'm going to catch them. If I add to the chat, but I don't say it's me, what are they going to say? And I made the stupid decision of alluding that I was Johnny. And then eventually was like, oh, it's not Johnny, it's me. Got you. And at the time...
You say alluding. Did you specifically change your name to say Johnny?
I don't remember, but I absolutely know that I made it seem like it was him, but not in a way of like giving personal details about him or saying like opinions.
Well, you understand how it comes across though, right?
Yeah.
Where people, hear that you were, at least in this instance, maybe there were other times that you did this where you're essentially eavesdropping in a chat.
Mm-hmm. It's weird and it's gross. And
I think a lot of people would say it's beyond weird even to just trying to understand why that's something that you would want to do with your time without them knowing.
Sure. A lot of that is absolutely true, what you're saying. It didn't feel like that at the time.
Because I think that the challenge that people have, even if they want to wrap their brains around just the tiny chats of it all, but even you saying that these are people that I knew, that I interacted with, we tweets, the chats, all of, you're having all of these interactions. I hear what you're saying when you're talking about there was an era of YouTube, and I don't know, maybe if it's still something that happens now, but where creators were interacting with fans and that was what you do, and the surprise meetups and all that kind of thing. But there's a lot of lines that are being crossed there.
Yeah, absolutely. In retrospect, that makes perfect sense to me. I wouldn't disagree with anything you're saying. And I hate saying it like this, but it was so normalized. And I'm not saying normalized is okay. I'm saying that as this kind of slowly took off and YouTube was becoming bigger and bigger as a thing that people could do for a living, you start to interact with anyone that interacts with your stuff. And you just think this is how you do it. You interact, you build your fan base, they get to know you, you get to know them. I was never seeking it out originally. I was never like, ooh, y'all come over here and let's talk. Let's have a private thing. It was, hey, this is happening. Josh, come over here. Josh, are you online? Josh, if you're online, hop in the chat for a few minutes. I just got back from running errands. Sure, I can hop on. I'm on my laptop anyway, probably editing something or doing something else. Sure, I'll hop on. But again, 39-year-old me now would not do that.
I would certainly hope not after all of everything that's happened.
I just mean like, regardless of YouTube and exposure and what people are saying, just me as a human being, I would not choose to do those things. And I wish I could have said that back then. You know, it was wrong.
Now, since I conducted this interview with Joshua, the lovely folks at the Colleen Ballinger Snark subreddit, and specifically users Jen Cat, have actually provided me with not only video evidence of Joshua changing his name to Johnny, but of Joshua actually explaining that he and Colleen would watch fans with their cameras off. It's a very kind of cringe-inducing clip, so we hopped on a call with him to have him explain all of this a little further. There have been some things that have come out on the Colleen Ballinger Snark subreddit, and there was a clip that was submitted to us pretty recently. I do think it's important in this whole story to be as open as possible, as you have been.
I understand that.
Okay.
I know it's not easy. This topic hasn't been easy for quite some time, so and anything that I might have done, I don't want to sugarcoat it and I don't want to sidestep it.
We have a clip that I would like you to take a look at.
Okay.
Sometimes when we're bored, we go on to Tiny Chat and watch our friends chatting with each other without them knowing that we're watching them. We're basically watching you guys right now. What is this? What are you guys doing right now? I feel like I should not be watching this. What is this? Don't put NSYNC and Backstreet in the same sentence. Tiny chatting with people online. Does that make me weird? Maybe. I'm no weirder than these guys.
Yeah.
Can you kind of tell me the circumstances then of what you remember around that, or if this was something that was common?
This was very similar to the other situation where every single time they were on a chat, they would tweet to us, we're on this chat, we're talking about you, come join us just for a sec, come join us, come say hey. And then people would hop on and use weird names to try to be like, do you know who this is? Because they would blast it on their public Twitter. Every now and then we would click on those links and see, all right, what are they saying? And that's really all that it was. Looking at it now, because that was clearly, I believe, 2014. So it's almost 10 years ago. Even hearing myself answer my own question. Well, I didn't answer my own question. I'm answering my own question now. Isn't that weird? I feel like I shouldn't be watching this. That's because it is weird and I should not be watching that. It was just another situation of you build this fan support and you connect with them. They tell their friends tell friends, and then you have a bigger base of people watching. And that was the base of people that were always together, always tweeting together, always doing tiny chats together, consistently asking, are you on? You should come on. We're talking about this, about that. And so I went on as Johnny.
Can you tell me why you chose Johnny's?
I chose Johnny because I knew he was in there all the time. I knew he was a presence within them because I would see all the tweets and the requests to hop on the chat. I mean, it sounds so weird, and because it is weird, if I pretend I'm Johnny, then they'll say the truth. They'll say whatever they actually think about my content or, what I posted. And I was curious, like, do they actually like me, or do they like that I'm associated with someone? And that was my mentality. That's why I would hop in every now and then just to see what they were saying.
Can you tell me like how long you would watch for?
Again, it'd be sporadic. It'd be like one time I hopped on and it was for 10 minutes. The next time I hopped on was a week and a half later. That was like a quick 5 minutes. And then they spoke to me like, John, it was weird. Shouldn't have done it. It's creepy me thinking about it.
Did you do this alone or were you with Colleen? What was that dynamic?
She was present for a couple of them. And I even used that one for content. I used that one to be like, hey, I'm going to put you in my vlog. All of the little justifications that I made in my head then were very much of, this is what you do. You're in this element. You're a YouTuber. This is how you connect. And I made every excuse I could to normalize things that I would not have done if YouTube wasn't something I was pursuing. For the most part, they were always like, we know it's you. It was all very surface level, fun, talking about the blog, talking about content. It's weird. If you told me that scenario just removed me and put some other grown man in there, I would be like, hell no. I don't care that you asked him 1,000 times to hop on. Why is he doing that? In that time of my life, I was desperately trying to build and create a channel. I didn't do it all the time, but it was definitely part of it. And I severely wish I did not do those things.
But I wanted to touch on a few pieces of content that we had been looking at aside from that vlog. There is the honeymoon vlog. The two of you are very much insinuating that she has her hand down your pants while you're vlogging. And that is something that you filmed and then edited and then uploaded. Chose the thumbnail, did all of that.
Absolutely.
There's also the Miranda Sings kissing tutorial. What were you thinking in that moment when you're filming this and laughing about it and then editing it and then uploading it and then leaving it up there and then enjoying the comments and the ad revenue and all those types of things?
I remember that moment that she started to do that and I was vlogging. I could have stopped and I could have been like, all right, I'm not filming this. But in my mind, I thought, this is just our dynamic. We're being silly. I really thought to myself, what I'm trying to get, I want an audience that are not kids. And my algorithm shows me that it's not as young as hers. So I kept making, again, excuses in my head.
I mean, you do know that your audience was coming from Colleen and from Miranda Sings. I would imagine you were aware of that.
Yeah.
So I know you're saying that the audience skewed.
I said I wanted it to become more of that.
Yeah.
Not that it was just that. I want to make that, I mean, that's what the words I'm giving you.
Okay, yeah.
Is that's where I wanted it to head. And so I was a little more bold in some of my decisions, thinking I'm trying to cater to college people and people in their 20s, people that are closer to my age. And so I'm like, it's okay if I push it because that's what I'm gearing it towards. While also knowing that a massive chunk were not that age. I clearly regretted it the next day because in the very next vlog, I tried to squash it and say it's not a big deal, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. Yet I still kept it up and still benefited on the ad revenue of it. There were a lot of decisions that I made that were very close to that. Very similar to that.
Well, because you say clearly you regretted it, so then you made another, something addressing it of sorts. But you can see that it would be hard for people to believe that you clearly regretted it if you left it up and monetized it.
Right, because I was selfish. I wanted to gain money.
So would that be implying that you didn't actually regret it?
I guess I didn't regret enough to change it. But I did regret enough that I was like, let me clear the air that it wasn't what I implied that it was. I knew that was going to be a clickable thing and I chose to do it, but it wasn't big enough in my head, in my moral fiber to say, just take that down. Because I also was dead set on making a video every single day for a year. That was my promise. And I'm like, I can't take down one. I've never missed a day. I'm not going to take it down. It was me. This is going to affect me. It all has to do with I wanted the attention that it was giving me. I absolutely did.
When you say you wanted the attention, my first thought then is that you enjoyed the attention from content heavily laden. I mean, that is what was happening. Both of your channels.
You're spot on with how you're phrasing it. At the time, I didn't put A to B in my head because I had once again during that time just started making excuses for myself because things had become so normalized in that era and in that group of people I was with. If I had sat down and really thought, do you know what you did? Do you know what you posted? Do you know what kind of people are, can you visualize who's watching this? Can you? I didn't do that. And I didn't care enough at the time to sit down and really give myself a hard look in the mirror. And I just didn't do it. And I look back now, I'm like, God, I did that. I absolutely did that. When fame hits and notoriety hits, a lot of people, I don't want to say all people, but a lot of people tend to disregard their moral standards in a way that before fame, it wasn't a thing for them.
I think there is actually a saying something along the lines of success, wealth, doesn't necessarily change you, it just magnifies what you already were.
Sure.
Was there a part of you that was already like that, that already, even though you said, I would never do that, but could it have just been magnifying something that was already there with you?
I've had a lot of issues with the way I was raised. It's embarrassing to say out loud, but I always made jokes about it to my friends. It was like the known thing. And it would get people to laugh, and I liked that. I liked that they were laughing. And I liked that I was turning something that I was embarrassed about into something that was funny and somewhat validating in a way. And so it makes sense psychologically that I would take that next step if I get a lot of eyeballs on me, that the kind of things I would joke about with my friends probably is going to start popping up in my content as well. And as much as I want to say I had no malicious intent, I didn't try to do anything, sometimes just the fact that you got an elephant in the room and you're just going to turn around and act like it's not there is doing just as much damage as when you're intentionally doing something with that purpose.
Even beyond the content, we talk about how this normalizes things, and you've talked about how it was normalized, it became normalized for you to do content like this. So now, the concern is, the cheese balls skit on the Miranda Sings tour in front of, thousands of people. Thousands. And then we see clips of you participating in that same skit. We can speak to it being normalized for you, but I think we need to speak to this being normalized on a massive scale in a way that we haven't seen often when we're talking about the massive scale of celebrity that particularly Colleen had, and then you coming along and participating in that.
It goes back to everything I'm saying, that I didn't have a backbone and I just went with it. It's very well known, and this does not eradicate me from anything, but it's just well known in that group that one person was creating that show and one person was creating the bits, and you don't challenge it because she's the successful one. She's the one that rose to the top, and how dare you tell her how to do what she knows how to do best. I didn't want to ruffle her feathers about that. There was a lot of things over those years that I just stopped complaining about, just stopped making an issue about, because it never got me anywhere. It only made things more tense. And so I did the cowardly thing and just went with it. Not thinking, but what is this doing to them? And how are they perceiving that? This is like, everyone's in on it and it's going over their heads. I kept convincing myself, this goes over their head. They don't get that the cheese balls and reaching in means X, Y, and Z.
It's it's the age-old skit that we've, seen, those old video clips of a guy who's got candy in his pocket. There's just no world I can get to thinking that was something that an adult came up with and another adult co-signed, you co-signing, participating in it. The tour managers co-signing on it, the venue co-signing. I mean, every adult in the room. It's like, I want to ask, where are the adults? Because apparently no one wants to act like one.
The adults are everywhere.
They're everywhere.
And they're not doing anything.
Yeah, right.
And I know I'm the one in the hot seat, and that's fine. And you can direct it to me, and that's totally okay. I'm not going to shift on that. But just hearing you list that, the tech crew, the people at the venue, the adults doing tickets, managers, stage managers, her parents were at so many shows. Me, Kory. No one's saying don't do it. Nobody is. And it's being paraded around like it's okay.
Like more than okay, because you're monetizing this too.
Sure.
So someone's paying for them to even be there.
And she she knew that I didn't like that part, but that, again, that doesn't change that what the outcome was. When you're along the ride with her, don't rock the boat, go with it.
There is something that we found, a thread on the Snark Reddit referring to an old vlog. Specifically, the vlog allegedly has you discussing you writing some of the material. So we were wondering if this is true, if you did write any of the Miranda Sings material.
No. The audacity that I would even think that I could lend an idea to her. No, she didn't take my ideas, and it wasn't like we all sat there and I was like, let's brainstorm and let's come up with some concepts and some bits. I mean, she sure as heck never wanted my input. She would ask Kory, she would ask Christopher. I never got the sense that she respected me enough to contribute those things. I've seen people say that, like, oh, Josh needs to answer for writing some of this material. I'm like, well, I didn't write that. I participated in things that I'm like, oh, that's cringy, shouldn't have done that, that's gross. But I didn't write it. That is just, it never happened.
I wanted to take this time to ask Joshua about one of Colleen's most front-facing victims, Becky. For those of you who don't know, Becky was somebody who was called on stage to a Miranda Sings show for the yoga challenge, an event that ended up with her in a vulnerable position on stage. Likely over the years, there have been many Beckys. And I know Becky's story happened after Joshua left the picture, but I wanted to ask him about the bit from the show in interest of getting to the bottom of this for her and for all of the other Beckys that there have been over the years.
There's a spectrum of opinions about this stuff in general, but on a probably more critical take, I'll put it, is it just generally kind of looks like you guys were willing to sell them for a buck. I think that's what has really disturbed people about this whole story and why this has become an international story now. And everything that's been happening with Colleen and her entire tour being canceled now. I'm guessing the venues are the ones who stepped in to cancel it. I don't presume that Colleen was the one who did, but I think about one victim in particular in this story, Becky, who was brought on stage in a romper and was put in the yoga bit that happened. And when I think about her story and what she went through, and then to hear her story and to speak with her, I'm curious to know, you have posted some apologies and you have, on Twitter, you've made some statements saying that you support their feelings are valid and all of that. And I'm just kind of curious, as someone who very openly participated in those shows, I'm wondering what you would think Becky might feel when you're now saying your feelings are valid.
Someone should have been protecting them. And I could have been one of those people. And I didn't do it. And the more that comes out, the more that I feel sick to my stomach, the more I think you had an opportunity. You had many opportunities. And just because bad things were happening behind the scenes does not mean it's okay for you to be complicit in these situations and even participate in these situations. So to anyone that's watching this, just like I said on Twitter, but I mean it as deeply as I can, you're not at fault. It was not your fault. You did not deserve it. You should have never been in that situation. You should have always been protected, and you should have always had people to step in and oversee and make judgment calls. And none of us did. And now there are repercussions. And my words are only words. And I know that. But I don't know how else to at least start to say, I see you. I wish I could strong arm myself back into that moment and change it. And I'm ashamed that I didn't do anything significant enough that would have resulted in them not experiencing what they're experiencing now. And then after the show, we did meet and greets, and I hung around with the parents most of the time while they were all meeting her. And we would joke with the parents, and they would joke back. And again, I'd walk away thinking, there's nothing wrong. We're fine. And it's not.
Now, it was about this point that Joshua brought up someone completely on his own that I hadn't been planning on asking him about, JoJo Siwa, a former reality star made famous in her appearances on the show Dance Moms before transitioning to a career on YouTube. There's a lot of hush discussion online about JoJo Siwa's relationship with the Ballinger family. Now, JoJo has not come forward either negatively or positively about her experiences, but for context, she has been a collaborator with Colleen Ballinger, her sister Rachel Ballinger, and Joshua David Evans at multiple points in her life, and to this day remains public friends with at least Rachel Ballinger from what we can tell. But after the Colleen and Josh divorce, JoJo initially took Josh's side and continued to collaborate with him for at least a year following the divorce before the two had an undiscussed falling out that led to her becoming closer to the Ballingers.
There's a situation with JoJo Siwa that I walked away from because it was starting to get that way, and I was being pressured to continue pulling her over to my side. And I flat out said, I will not. This is after the divorce, so like I'm starting to like snap out of it, right? And to the people that were like, you need to reach out to JoJo because she was very much, you know, a fan of you and favored you, but the Ballingers are trying to get to her and bring her over.
Yeah, we noticed that there was a shift with her in her engagement or interaction with you.
The reason why that happened was because when I was on the telephone, and I won't name names, they were like, if I were you, you should text her back, call her, let her know, DM her that you still want to be in her life. And I said on the phone, I said, I'm not about to try to navigate control over who she likes. It's weird, and I will not do it. And that was one of the first times that post my involvement, I got to make a decision on my own. I knew I could continue being close with JoJo, and I am not going to go down that road. So she's gonna have to think I'm a person because I'm not gonna engage anymore. And I'm not going to try to sway her over to liking me and believing me and not believing them. And then it happened. I watched it unfold. And the moment she even went on a podcast with Rachel, I believe, she even said, oh yeah, for that year, I didn't talk to you guys because I was, y'all were mad at me because I was, you know, hanging out with Josh or whatever. I'm paraphrasing. I got tweeted that information and I thought, well, okay. Everything I thought was gonna happen did happen. And at least I can look at this situation, this one thing, and be like, you did the right thing. You could be doing what I think they have done with her for years now, is to take that name and take that involvement and benefit from it, which is something I used to be a part of. When I have opportunities to do the right thing, I want to take them and do them. Doesn't erase things, but it's the bare minimum of what I could start doing. And I could have kept doing that. And I just decided to walk away.
Now, the topic of racism, unfortunately, is part of the story when it comes to the Colleen Ballinger universe. We've seen many video clips of Colleen as Miranda Sings, mocking and belittling people of color, asking if Black people speak English, and of course, the blackface, greenface scandal in the middle of this current story breaking. Joshua had also participated in content considered racially insensitive, so as you might have guessed, I confronted him about it. And just a reminder, there will not be anything graphic played in regards to this.
I'm just gonna very briefly address just one other piece of content that is unfortunately out in the world. You, Colleen, and Rachel made a music video called Generic
Rap Song.
Yes. Where, unfortunately, the three of you dress in very offensive, racially insensitive, stereotyping outfits, and the entire song is mocking rap and hip-hop, which of course is quite central to the Black community culturally. You've said that you've learned, you're taking accountability for things.
Yeah.
Why is that video still up?
It's on my old channel that I do not have the password for anymore. That's on a channel called Joshua D84, which was my first channel. I mean, at this point, it's like 15 years old. But yeah, if I could access it, I would take it down right now. I absolutely understand why it is offensive, and I thought we were teetering on the line of just commenting on how a rap song is created and the type of things that you hear in a rap song. And I was very insensitive, not even understanding. I wouldn't even call it microaggressions. I would call it aggressions, if that's how you phrase it.
We generally just call it racist.
Sure, racist, yep. Where I'm from, I was taught a mentality, whether I was aware of it or not. And I've had to go through a lot of growing pains through seasons of life where I had to unlearn a lot of things and unlearn a lot of things I thought was funny to talk about. Jokes I would make about other types of communities, and changing my perspective, changing what I think is okay and what's not okay. And I made excuses in my head thinking, I'm not talking about black people, I'm talking about anybody in the rap game, because there, Eminem and all those people back then, that it doesn't matter, that's how I justified it in my head back then. I see it now, and I think there's only one way to interpret that song. And I thought it was funny, and it's not funny. I want to take full accountability. I didn't write the whole thing, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We all decided on it. We all filmed it. We all recorded it. We posted it.
I think once you put the do-rag on, you're pretty committed to the cause there.
Yeah, sure. In those years, I've had to face, why did I think that was okay? Mm-hmm. Why did I think that was funny? Why did I think, when you think, oh, but SNL, they'd make a sketch like that, and Mad TV would make a sketch like that, and that's the content I've watched, and you start to think that's okay. Doesn't mean it's okay. You don't like my answer?
No, it's. I mean, your answer is your answer. I just, I'm thinking about when
I'm
people.
not talking about your response to the answer.
No, I'm just thinking about when people say like, oh, so and so did it, and it's like, well, that was racist, and that was racist, and we're just apparently people didn't want to pay attention to the fact that this is really harmful to marginalized communities. Absolutely. And it always has been since the dawn of time. So, anyways, it's not something that I wanted to like. Just really dig into, but I just was, I see this and I'm like, he's talking about accountability. Why is this still up? And then you say you don't have access to the channel. So it gives more context to the thing. Sure. But hopefully you've learned some things since then. I
would hope so. I would hope so. Because, when you hear people be like, well, I have black friends, so I'm not racist. Mm-hmm. I roll my eyes at that. I'm aware. And even though I'm different now, it's just a stain in my life that I have to live with, regardless of how I feel now.
Hi, I am Johnny Silvestri.
On June 7th, 2023, a man named Jonathan Silvestri took to Twitter to accuse Josh of harming him. As the Colleen Ballinger story blew up on social media, Johnny tweeted allegations of varying severity at Joshua hundreds of times in around 2 months and shared his allegations on the H3 podcast, the Do We Know Them podcast with Lily and Jesse, and with me in a number of interviews. If you've seen part 3, you know how that turned out for him. Now, this interview with Joshua took place on July 21st, just one day after my team and I had discovered John may have doctored evidence, while also admitting to me that John Silvestri didn't want to take accountability publicly for his role in group chats that he had been in. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I had a few doubts about John, considering we had already clocked a number of inconsistencies in his timeline, but that double whammy from the day before my interview with Josh completely shifted the energy that I had in even asking Joshua about John. Now, we already knew that John had lied about his age. We already knew that his parents had been around John and Joshua practically every time they were together and even encouraged their limited interactions. And at this point, we already knew that John had a peculiar trend of describing his mentorship of fans the same way that he described Joshua allegedly mentoring him. That somehow Josh's mentorship was evil, but John's was honorable. But regardless, I didn't tell Joshua about any of our findings in order to keep the investigation clean. Remember, at the time of this interview, we were still piecing together who to believe and on what. So I wanted to see if the way Joshua described the events to us matched what we had found. And to my team's utter surprise, it did.
We're gonna have to talk about Johnny Silvestri. Now, a lot of the public believes that Johnny is the reason why you have been brought back into this whole story. As you know, in full disclosure, I have done a 6-hour interview with Johnny, which I have not shared the details with you about that interview. It's no secret Johnny has accused you of some very serious allegations. We're going to get to specifics, but I do want to start just in general right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that characterization of you?
No, not at all. It's just a heavy thing to throw out. I know my intent. I know who I am. I've made mistakes, but I also don't know if I believe that he even thinks that.
That he thinks...
that I'm those things. Yeah.
Do you feel like he's just making these claims, not believing them, and that they're lies, or what do you mean by that?
No, I think he takes fragments of truth that are real, and he amplifies them almost identically to how Colleen did the same thing behind the scenes, where she would take little fragments of truth, and this is what I've seen with receipts, little fragments of truth, and then expand on them to make them massive. And that's just the narrative that's believed. So seeing him take the relationship that we had and to articulate it in this way while leaving out so much context and embellishing and misleading. I've taken it so much over the last 6 or 7 years. I've dealt with it, and I don't want the narrative taken from me again. The story of what happened is not the way he's portraying it. And I don't think I don't know, I can't speak for him, but I think there's a part of him that knows what he's doing. And if he's not talking about me anymore, then what does he have left to bring people and their eyeballs over to him? Because the things that he's claiming it's just wildly misleading and damning and very hurtful, when I never had any ill will towards him. The things he says it's heartbreaking, because it's not what I thought he was. It's not what I thought he was about.
When you say that you think that he knows what he's doing, do you think that he is making these allegations out of malicious intent, or what do you mean by that when you say he knows what he's doing?
At first I didn't think that. That's why I wrote to him privately when I got wind that he was feeling hurt. So I reached out, and then the way he has responded to that and how it has progressively gotten more and more hateful, spiteful, embellished. Everything I do or say, he somehow makes it as like a slam against him when it had nothing to do with him. And it's hard for me not to see the parallels. There are parallels between me and him and Adam and Colleen. There are, but they're worlds apart.
What parallels would you say exist?
So the parallels just with the relationship is I gave him my phone number, and then he ran an account for me. To me, that's where the parallel stops. And even the account that he's talking about, he's comparing it to something that it's a false equivalency. It's not the same. And he wants it to be the same. He wants to project that it's the same, and it's just not.
Now, just to recap a bit from part 3, one of the things that I discovered in the 7.5 combined hours in speaking with John Silvestri is that, in his words, John and his parents went on a family trip to a show in New York City where they had a sort of unofficial meet and greet to meet Colleen and Joshua alongside a number of Colleen fans. In my conversations with Joshua, I discovered that Johnny tweeted and spoke often in these chats about how he was depressed and having trouble in school. And Josh believed that John was in need of guidance. And at the meet and and greet, Johnny handed them a paper crown he had won from the show to be autographed. Colleen signed it, and then Joshua signed, and then Joshua proceeded to put his phone number on the crown as well. But Johnny and Joshua have expressed that this was meant as some kind of misguided attempt at Joshua becoming a mentor, and I agree with both of them. It's very inappropriate, except it's also worth noting that not only were Johnny's parents there for this, according to John, they knew and they approved of this because Johnny was an aspiring YouTuber. To quote adult Johnny about this, his parents thought he was, quote, doing the damn thing, and that maybe their son was going to make something of himself on YouTube.
And I think in their minds, they were just like, holy shit, like, our kid's doing the damn thing. Okay, so maybe school didn't work out for him, but like maybe he's meant for something. Maybe he's gonna do something. Maybe Josh can be a mentor.
For him to take it and just run so far with it, it's hard to think he has good intentions. It's hard to think that he is truly believing this to his heart and feels hurt and wants retribution or something. To me, when I said to him privately, this is getting vindictive, and then he took that and said, how dare you call me vindictive? Mm-hmm. I'm like, read the whole thing, man. I didn't say you are a vindictive person. This situation starts to feel vindictive, and I stand by that. Read anything he's saying. It's a lot to deal with. So as far as the parallel with our relationship with me and him and Adam and Colleen, yeah, I was the influencer, he was the fan. I handed him an account that had barely any followers, that I did not take seriously, that I was not making money off of, that I never intended to make money off of. I didn't want to do it anymore. He already had an account that was identical to the one I had. And I thought, I don't care enough to keep up with this. I really don't.
We're specifically talking about the Sarah Ridiculous account.
I had a character called Sarah Ridiculous, obnoxious blonde who just is entitled. That's the whole spiel. And I had a Twitter account where I would tweet as her. I think it has maybe 2,000 and something followers to it. Mm-hmm. It was for a season and it was fun to do, but it just wasn't something I wanted to continue. But I saw I didn't know it was his Twitter at first. I saw another account that was very similar with, the phrasing just a little bit different in the title. And the same things that were being tweeted from that fake account was very similar to mine. And so I found out who it was. I didn't think it was him at first. I thought it was another mutual, but I reached out and she said, no, it's not me, it's actually Johnny. I'm like, oh, well, me and Johnny are cool. I'm just gonna throw it over to Johnny. And I reached out and said, do you wanna run this thing?
He did provide me with a screenshot of your text exchange about that. But one of the questions, that comes anytime a screenshot is presented is, what is the context, that's before and after that we can't see.
All I remember is finding out that it was him and asking him, but I don't remember the nuances of what we really talked about. Okay. Again, it was so many years ago, it's hard for me to recollect.
Were you continuing to tweet from that account at the same time that he was, or did he take it over entirely?
I think there were times that I still would hop in and tweet, and then eventually by like 2015, just stopped looking at it, stopped logging in, stopped searching for it, stopped engaging, because it didn't hold a lot of weight for me, because it wasn't something I wanted to continue. That's why it felt like not a big deal, because I wasn't making money from it, and it was never a promise of you do this and you'll make money. It was never that type of thing. It was, to me, I can understand his point of view where it's like you have maybe your favorite influencer saying, do you want to run something that I created? And that's a big deal. I see that, I get that. And so I don't want to take that from him. That's how it felt for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you mentioned the parallels. Mm-hmm. With Colleen's relationship with Adam and him taking over the Miranda Sings Twitter account, she was kind of dangling over his head, you'll get a job, you do good here, then I will hire you officially. And so she has Adam doing essentially free labor.
I don't want to call it payment, but I was happy to say, listen, dude, if this is something you want to like get into, content creation, you know, I'm going to promote you on my page. I'm going to put you as one of my people, you know, go follow these guys too. And I meant that. I was rooting for him, but it wasn't like, do this and I'll give you that. It was never that type of a thing. There was no exchange. There was no promise. I mean, of course, like he brings up that I promised him up and down, if I made it big, I'd bring him with me.
This was my ticket to success, my ticket to happiness. No one could take it away from me. You can ask anybody. He would be like, oh yeah, me and Johnny, we're gonna take over the world. We're gonna make it big together someday.
Johnny, my whole world and career crashed to the ground. Where was I gonna take you? What did you expect me to do? There was nothing to take you to. I lost everything. So when he keeps saying that as if it's like a weapon for him to use, it's like, well, why don't you include the rest of it?
He's referred to that in an interview with me as you selling him a fantasy. And he used that word quite a number of times. Also, this fantasy of being kind of the bigger brother to him, and you're going to take him under his wing and whatnot. And that's something that he's characterized quite often. Do you agree with that? Were you making those promises? Was there a fantasy?
To me, there was nothing misleading about what I was saying. There was nothing inauthentic about what I was saying. Everything I said to him about those things, I meant those things. When I said, oh, you're like a little bro and I'm a big bro, I meant that. I grew up in a culture where I had older people in a youth group, like I was a big Christian upbringing. I had older people in their 20s as mentors, and it was very normal for me because my father and I, we were on such bad terms, and he was incredibly abusive. I needed somebody, and I had it with the church people. So when I saw Johnny express to me, I have nobody, how did you make it out of high school? I don't have any friends. My heart went out to him. And so that's why, to me, it didn't feel like a wrong thing to be like, I'll be someone that you can reach out to. Now, did that mean I'm going to talk to you every single day and we're going to be on the phone and I'm going to have check-ins with you? It was never like that. The reason why I keep saying internet big brother when I talk about it sometimes is because that puts a distance that I was very aware of and I was very conscious of.
Now, as a reminder, John's correspondence with Joshua online began with him directly telling Joshua that he was feeling alone, depressed, and having trouble in school. This is an important context in understanding this story in general.
I mean, I worried about him. The look on his face when I first started getting to like see him interact, I just felt really not super protective, but protective enough that like something in me wanted to like lend a hand.
When did you first meet Johnny, and kind of walk me through the story of how you meet Johnny and how your relationship developed?
They got wind that we were going to be in New York for a Miranda show. It's all kind of blurry for me because it was so long ago, but I remember there being a handful of people with him. It wasn't just him, and we were all talking. We were all like, oh my God, yeah, hey, so nice to meet you in person. He always had this kind of presence that seemed, I feel bad saying this. It seemed sad. He just seemed sad to me. And I remembered how it felt with my situation, and it broke my heart, and I made a mistake. And while we were giving autographs, which was a new thing for me, because YouTube at that point, I want to make that clear, YouTube wasn't my job then. To me, that's why it's like, it wasn't this weird influencer fan dynamic. I had other jobs, not YouTube. So it really for me felt like, oh, this is kind of like the youth group thing. I'm the older one now. I want to lend a hand out to him. That's what happened for me. Not, I'm this big person that everyone knows. The fact that they even wanted my signature was new.
There was still a power dynamic there, of course, because you're attached to one of his idols. You become an idol as well, just kind of because you're associated with Colleen. Well, I hear what you're saying, that YouTube wasn't your job then. There's still going to be that element.
I understood the dynamic.
There. Yeah.
I'm not saying like, oh, I'm just the Joe Schmo and that's all I am. I know I am, by association, part of this growing thing at the time. All I saw was someone that I felt my heart go out to, and that was it.
I think you were about to touch upon, but Johnny has obviously said publicly that when he met you in New York, he was getting autographs from everyone. It was Colleen is Miranda, and you, but you, instead of just giving him your autograph, you also gave him your phone number.
I sure did.
Why did you do this? Why did you give him your number?
Same reason why my mentors growing up had my number. And I was introduced to that idea as like, there are boundaries. You don't like call this older guy at all hours of the night. You use it if things are bad with your dad. Use it. I didn't know the way he had painted it to me. It was like no one was there for him. He didn't have anybody. He didn't have any friends, and he didn't feel like he connected to anybody. And I felt terrible for him. And it was a mistake to give him my number. I understand that now. But my intent was, to me, it never felt creepy. It never felt like I wanted to get something from him. I felt almost responsible, like I should do this. I should help him out. Thinking that we're going to understand boundaries and it's not going to be some consistent all the time thing. To me, it was just like a knee jerk, this is what you do. Like, does he have anybody? And so I just thought, what if no one else reaches out to him? What if this is it? And I don't want to sound dramatic, but that's really how I felt. I thought this guy needs somebody, at least to say, I believe in you. I think you're going to do great things.
You know, obviously the public is seeing you sort of unsolicited giving your phone number. Can you understand why people have so many questions around that?
Yeah, I can understand how people will look at it now and be like, why would Josh do that? Because Josh at that time thought, I'm doing a good thing, and that's what good people do. And in retrospect, it's like, oh, okay, that set the course that became increasingly aggressive, or to the point where I didn't know how to interact.
What do you mean by aggressive?
He would start to show up at shows. Of course I wanted people to come to shows, but most of the time it wasn't even my show. At first it felt normal and chill to have like, oh, that's Johnny. He's at the show. That's my boy. That's my little bro. What's up, dude? No, I'll hang over in the side where everyone else is here, but yeah, dude, how's life? What's going on? I didn't know that was going to be time and time and time again, that he would continuously show up at these shows.
You characterize this as aggressive. Was this something, were you directly inviting him? Like, was he inviting himself? Were you inviting him? Was it a mixture?
I want to be fair. Going back through my Twitter DMs, it shows that it's far more heavier on his side. I need to talk to you. We need to talk. Let's talk. Call me, or can I call you? I'm coming to your show, or when is your show? And I'm coming. I was going to surprise you. Like, it was not me saying, you got to come to my show. You have to come to my show. Please come to every show that I will be a part of. And when I started getting those messages, if you look at those receipts, you'll see I don't respond because I didn't know how to respond anymore. Because at that point, I'm like, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I gave him the number, I engaged, but now it feels like I've bitten off more than I can chew.
So I mentioned earlier that just one day before this interview, we discovered that Johnny and Joshua did not send identical Twitter DM receipts, and that July 20th, 2023 was the day we believe we received doctored evidence from Johnny Silvestri. What I don't think I mentioned yet is that Joshua did not know about this at all. In hindsight, when Joshua is talking about all of this and his complete confusion on what communicating with Johnny back then was even like, I cannot even imagine how frustrating it must have been to discover that Johnny had deleted so many of the DMs he had sent Joshua and then tried to pass it off as legitimate representation to us of how Johnny and Joshua spoke back then.
I want to touch upon really quick, coming back to when you gave him your phone number. Do you recall if his parents were there?
I remember off to the side, there were a group of adults. I don't remember every interaction I had in that moment on the streets of New York.
Well, he did share with me in an interview that his parents were there.
I feel like I acknowledged his father. Do I remember going up to them and knowing me, I'm a chatty guy. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if I walked over and introduced myself to them as well. I just don't remember if I did that in that moment.
After you gave him your phone number, can you give me an idea of how often you and Johnny would talk?
It was not incredibly consistent. To me, it happened in spurts. I do remember not always responding to certain things, but then I would chime in.
And would this span like text messages on the phone? Were there phone calls? Was it Twitter? It was never phone calls. It was never like we're on the phone just chatting the night away. That was never a thing. What I remember was fragmented amounts, and it wasn't like every single day we're tweeting about life and what's going on at school today, and it was never like that.
So we know about Joshua and Johnny's experiences on Tiny Chat, but I was curious, given Johnny's dodgy answers about how they allegedly spent time alone, what Joshua had to say about the concept of the two of them spending time alone.
I'm curious to know if you have an idea of how many times you hung out with Johnny in any capacity in person.
Probably anywhere from, I've probably seen him in person 6, 7, 8 times to my recollection.
Were any of those times alone?
Every single time I was ever around him, there were other people around. It was never, we're off on some secluded place, just us. That was never the situation. It was either in public where hundreds of people were around, or it was his family is right there. The one time that I hung out with his family.
So,
or shows, like meet and greets.
Right. I want to talk about the auto show. Johnny has referred to this, him coming to the auto show, and he refers to having a coffee date with you.
Okay.
That's how he characterized it to me, a coffee date.
We had a little coffee date when he worked at the auto show.
He said that this happened during the Chicago Auto Show that you were working, where you guys also created some content together. His family was there. You had a dinner with his family. Is that correct? Can you just tell me about this entire interaction with this auto show? How did he come to be there? How did his family come to be there? And what happened?
I remember being on the auto show floor where I was presenting the Chevy Cruze. I recognized his sister walking around, and I was like, oh, hey. And at the time, I believe his sister was like in college or getting into college, and I'm like, what are you doing here? Do you like cars? And I'm sitting there on this rotating thing with a car, talking to her just like I would talk to anybody coming up to see the car. And that turned into leading to, well, now Johnny and my family also want to hang out, or they're wondering if you can, or they're wondering if there's time to.
So you run into his sister first.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
To my knowledge, I saw her first, and there's also a picture on Instagram where we're at the auto show and it's me and his sister.
Yes.
And I'm like hiding behind her hair. And that turned into discussions of, my family would love to have you over for dinner. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And like, I was nervous, to be honest with you. I didn't really know them like super well. But I also knew I'm on this auto show circuit for months, and I eat fast food every night, and all the people in the auto show, they go party every night. I don't want to do that. I don't want to party again. Hey, Johnny's cool, and his family seems so much like families I grew up around. So I was like, you know what? Fine. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Was Johnny there when she had invited you to dinner with the family?
I honestly don't remember. I don't remember if he was or was not. I do remember talking to him at some point about it. To be honest, again, like I'm trying to fill in gaps in my head right now.
Do you remember having coffee with
Yeah,
Johnny?
Absolutely, yeah. I do.
Tell me about that.
He wanted to hang out again.
Where were you?
This was the auto show floor with the not cafeteria, it was a food court. And I remember him wanting to hang out. And I was like, well, you can come see me on my break, but it can't be for too long because I have to get back to work. And I remember we both got a coffee. I believe I paid for his coffee and hung out for 15, 20 minutes. And then I had to go. I had to go back to work.
How do you feel about that being characterized as a, quote, coffee date?
It makes me feel weird inside to have anyone think of it that way. Because to me, it was, I'm chill with your family. We like had a fun dinner. We were together for a couple of hours and he wants to hang out again. Okay, like to categorize it as a date feels very misleading and very like, I'm gonna paint it in this light when it was not like that.
Okay. Can you just briefly tell me about the having dinner with Johnny's family?
We all sat around the table and had a great meal and got to know each other and talked, and it wasn't like super long. It's not like I was there for 4, 5, 6 hours or anything. And then they took me back to the auto show.
Okay. So it was a short dinner.
It was a casual dinner and we enjoyed our time, and I loved like talking to his parents and getting to know their life and hearing about his sister's aspirations and what she was going towards. And it all felt, I don't know, it felt nice to be around a family when I'm constantly on the road.
One of the things that made interviewing John Silvestri so frustrating is that in virtually all of the stories he told me, he claimed back then he was 15 or 17 years old and being directly invited to Joshua's shows across the country, while also proving through his own words that this wasn't the case. One of the most perplexing examples of this came when John told me a story about how he flew down to California from Illinois to catch one of Joshua's shows that he claimed Joshua made him go to, and how he was allegedly 17 years old and renting a car to do that. To be clear, none of that was true. He was an adult, and the invitation John talks about was Joshua promoting a show on Twitter.
I want to touch upon quickly on the Irvine show, the Shadows tour, the first show that you had of that tour. That happened on May 20th, 2015. That was just a few days before Johnny's birthday on May 24th, when he was about to turn 19. Johnny claims that you invited him to the show.
He would say stuff to me like, "Oh my God, come to California for my show," and I'd be like, "Are you serious?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, come on down." And I'd be like, "Whoa, sick."
So he flew out to Los Angeles, rented a car, and drove to the show. He also has said that he had trouble renting the car and that he had messaged both you and Colleen, kind of conveying that he was stranded and hoping maybe you would come pick him up from Irvine and to Los Angeles. I'm curious, do you remember him calling you, and did you directly invite him to that show?
I don't remember him calling me. It was our very first show. We were on edge. We were nervous. Everyone and their brother was coming to that show. Every YouTuber you can think of was at that show. If he did call, and I just don't remember that was happening, I had so many things going on. Tech runs, making sure everything is set up.
Sure, it's a busy time.
It's a lot. So if I got a call, I probably was overwhelmed at the time. Don't really remember it, but I'll take him at his word if he said that's what he experienced and that's what he called. So it wasn't me saying, "You gotta come to this show, man, do whatever it takes." Like, that's not what happened.
This is the night that Johnny has stated that he came out to you. And he said that you responded by saying, quote, "That's none of my business." And when he said that he has expressed that he had told you that he was considering coming out to his parents, and he has said that you discouraged him from doing so. Is this how you remember that happening?
Yeah, it did happen that way. He said it to me. I was taken aback. I was not expecting that kind of a major life declaration, especially in that dynamic, in that situation with what was going on around us. The first response was, that's not my business. You don't have to tell me that kind of a thing. But then when it comes to his parents, what he's leaving out is he also expressed immense fear of what his parents would say or do in reaction. And so being from the South and knowing how people treat and seeing people being treated a certain way, my first response was, if you feel like, this is dangerous for you, and if you do it, you might not have a place to sleep at night, and you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you should wait until you're 18. What, he said he was 19?
There's been different ages that have been
That's what I'm like.
But when he has said that this happened at the Shadows show, which would have been in 2015. So that would have put him 18 turning 19.
Okay.
At the time. So he has said that this is when it happened. So
I'm
just going off of that information. So he would have been about to turn 19.
Then what I recollect is that he was living with them. He was still under that roof.
Mm-hmm.
And my response was, if you feel like that would mess that up and that you would not have a place to go, then my advice is to get on your own 2 feet and be able to take care of yourself. If you don't feel like you know them better than anybody else here would know. So if you don't think they're going to receive it well and you're afraid of that, then I've seen where it goes sour and they're left on the street and it's real and it's bad. It was never a thing of don't tell them. Like, that's not, I don't feel that way. I did not feel that way during that time. So for him to say that I was just like kind of shoving it off and say, don't tell them, it's so bad. That is not what I thought. That's not my tone. If anything, he's picking and choosing parts of it and leaving other parts out. I remember thinking he's afraid of what his parents are going to say, or if they're going to be distraught and it's not going to end well for him. And maybe he doesn't have anywhere to go because he still didn't have a lot of people in his life, to my knowledge.
I'm not going to provide my thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
He does seem quite hurt and upset, feeling like he was discouraged.
I don't believe him. I think he knows me. For him to say that I discouraged him because I thought it was wrong or there was something wrong with him is absolutely the polar opposite of who I was then, especially who I am now. There's no part of me that would shun him in a way of like, don't you say that. That was never a part of it. I think he knows that. It feels like a lot of things. He pulls fragments and he leaves out context. And when you do that, you can string together any type of narrative you want. It's happened to me so many times with the Colleen situation. So it just doesn't feel right for him to twist it without the context of, but he also communicated this other thing that changes to me the whole dynamic. I feel like it was at the meet and greet. There's a lot of things happening and he drops this. Okay, you dropped it. I don't know how to take that in this moment. I got a whole line of other people waiting. And now you're expressing you don't know how it's going to go. So to hear him just push that narrative over and over and over feels very dishonest.
I'm going to leave your words to speak for yourself there, because I think it's obviously a very sensitive subject. Within the same time frame, though, a few days later, per what Johnny told me in an interview, he said he received a birthday gift from his family, which was a video montage of a bunch of family, friends, and whatnot wishing him a happy birthday. And it included clips of you saying happy birthday to him and Trent Ballinger. On Twitter, Johnny has characterized your video clip. He's clipped it out, he's put it on Twitter, and he's characterized it as very creepy, a creepy act.
What's up, Johnny? Happy birthday, man. Today's a big day for you. Happy birthday, man. I believe in you. I'm proud of you. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for Mr. Silvestri. To Johnny. What the future holds for Johnny.
However, in my interview with him, he told me that, and I don't think he's shared this publicly anywhere, he told me that his family hounded you to make that video.
And then even more confusing is that video you see of him wishing me a happy birthday. They told me now that they had asked him if he would do it, and he said yes, absolutely. And then they had to hound him and be like, dude, you said you'd make the video, like, come on, like, you're the only person we're waiting on. You're not Beyonce. Get on your phone and just say, hey, Johnny, happy birthday. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. You said you'd do it.
I was asked repeatedly, can you send this? But I was asked that question from numerous fans. It's my birthday. Can you send me a birthday shout out? It was like Cameo. Like it was something that, yeah, every now and then I would either tweet to people, happy birthday, I heard it's your birthday. Or I'd pull up my phone right then and there and be like, hey, Margaret, I heard it's your birthday. Happy birthday. Hope you have a great one. And I remember hearing, hey, it's his birthday. Can you add, we're doing this. Can you add to it? And I mean, why would I not? For him to call it creepy, I don't understand what's creepy about it. Tell me what's creepy.
I just, I don't think that he had shared publicly that his family had actually requested it.
I was requested so many different times from different people.
Or, sorry, he actually used the word hounded you for it.
It feels so out of left pocket. It doesn't feel like, how can you take that where anyone can watch it and then turn around and be like, see how creepy that is? When it's, to me, it's the most innocent, wishing someone a happy birthday.
Now, one of the things that has always been perplexing to me about John Silvestri's claims against Joshua was that Joshua ghosted John. It has verifiably been shown untrue, even in the literal sense of the word, for as long as I've known about John's story. Now, Joshua explains what I mean pretty well.
I want to move on to the ghosting that he talks about. Do you know specifically when you stopped speaking to Johnny?
The last 2 months of my marriage, so summertime of 2016, things were rough in my life before everything blew up. And I already started distancing myself from people. I was going through a lot of stuff. I didn't know who to talk to. When I'm sad, depressed, I isolate. When everything happened, and my life imploded. My whole world was destroyed. Mm-hmm. I lost, like I said, I lost a family. I was betrayed by the one person I wanted to trust the most. I was falling apart. I didn't know what my next step was going to be. I was thinking I could ask for half of everything, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give it all to her. And I did do that. And I don't remember half of the people reaching out to me because I just went into a dark, silent place. And the next thing I can remember that has anything to do with him is seeing him tweeting positively to her. And so in my mind, I'm like, I was hurt by that. I was hurt thinking, why are you showing support to someone that you know, if you're like my internet little bro, like what, it feels weird that you're like saying admirable things to this person that wrecked me. And so I didn't confront him. I didn't go off. I wasn't about to be like, you need to come over to my side. How dare you? I don't want to control him. That's the whole thing. He wants to say he was controlled. That's the opposite of what I did. I didn't want to control him. I wanted him to make his own decisions. So to me, he made a decision. And then I made a decision, which was, I can't see anything related to her. It hurts. Too bad. So I removed anything that had any type of connection to her. Especially like on my channel, I featured a lot of her family members. I had to take that off. But then I also took YouTube away, like I just walked away from YouTube for a chunk of time and fell into a deep, dark place.
Right, which you had spoken about earlier.
For him to, because he goes on and on and on about this whole ghosting thing. And everyone's like, poor Johnny, poor Johnny, poor Johnny. That was so messed up. I can't believe that happened. And once again, it feels identical to what I went through, where no one gave a about what I was feeling and what was going on with me. Everyone's like, poor Johnny, I can't believe Josh just abandoned you. And I'm like, who do you think you are? My life was wrecked. You think my first priority is to not talk to my best friends from childhood, which I wasn't doing, or family, but I need to come out and be like, I just want to let you know we're cool, bro. That was not in my psyche. Where's the understanding? Where's the ability at this point, because he's not a baby, where's the part of you in your humanity that goes, he's going through hell. Maybe he needs some time. This ain't about me right now. The way he's depicting it now, especially all these years later, it's right there. My life crashed and burned. And he's mad that I wasn't like hitting him up. And then so he jumps ship and goes over to Colleen and then starts doing tour stuff with her and is still mad and acting like I was some villain ghosting him because I didn't give a about him. It's just not it's not how it went. It's infuriating because it's like, once again, it doesn't matter about what happened to me. Everyone else is right. Everybody else is always right. Josh is always the lesser than. It was just that all over again. I'm lesser than in every situation, and now in 2023, I'm dealing with it again. It doesn't matter that I was, when my whole life fell apart and I didn't want to live. I didn't respond to Johnny. That's infuriating to me. Where's any ounce of care or consideration of what I was feeling? There isn't any, and now he's weaponizing it. And I have to defend myself all over again, like my heart doesn't matter.
If you don't mind, I would like to ask you, and it has to do with Johnny. He acknowledged you being a victim in your relationship with Colleen, and then he went on to say that, why didn't you get out of it? You must have wanted something. You f***ed around and found out, and now you're just upset about it.
At this point, I don't care that he was a victim, because we're not talking about that story anymore. If he wanted to talk about that story, he had every opportunity in 2016. He said he was going to do it, but he was making an ass out of himself. And I think he got embarrassed and he started this new life in Georgia. I'm no Colleen apologist, but he actively chose to remain in this relationship. He had so many outs. He didn't propose for like 9 years. Why did you enter a marriage that was so toxic if you knew it was so bad? You must have wanted something out of it and it bit you in the ass. So I truly think it was like he f***ed around and found out, and now he's just upset about it.
How did that make you feel, hearing him say something like that?
He's saying the quiet part. He's saying what I think everyone is saying. It didn't feel new to me. It didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's like, yeah, I heard that. People just don't care how it affects me. I just really started believing that I just didn't matter. I didn't matter. How it affected me doesn't matter. My emotions doesn't matter. Johnny himself said, I don't care. Like, to me, it wasn't like some sword through the chest. It was just kind of like another numbing slap in the face. Another like, yeah, you already know this. You know that you were just this thing. You weren't a person who also has feelings and a journey and hopes and dreams and downfalls. Like, cool, you don't like me. I have thought that a lot of people don't like me for a long, long time. And it used to suck my soul dry. And now I have closed myself off. And I only truly look for that kind of validation with only a handful of people, if that. You have been, I don't want to like just kiss up to you. I don't feel like you're in my corner. I feel like you are, you just care about truth and finding what that truth is and presenting that truth. But I feel like I have never experienced that. Presenting the truth has changed a lot for me. It's one of those things that I just never thought it would happen. So thank you for being the only person in this whole shenanigan that like made me feel like I was worth a couple of cents. You know, like I really appreciate it.
Well, you know, as I've told you, we just feel like in order to have an accurate story, the responsible thing is to hear from as many of the people involved as possible if they want to speak.
I don't want to skew how you're going to edit this or what you're going to show.
You can't, so don't worry about that. And also, you know that I will grill you. You know, the truth has a way of showing itself as long as you are willing to take accountability.
I do not regret caring about him. I do not regret wanting to be a positive force in his life. I regret that me giving my number to him led to a course of events that has spun out of control and the narrative has gone completely haywire. Do I wish I could take back the moment where I gave him the number? I do, because I don't want the pain that he feels to have happened. But I don't think at any point was I using him, manipulating him, getting things from him, promising him all these crazy things. All I did was I cared about him, and then I didn't know how to navigate. When this guy kept increasing the interactions between us that started to feel to me, this isn't appropriate. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to say. I don't want to hurt his feelings. He already feels like a vulnerable person. I don't want to be another rejection. So when I reached out to him, when I got wind that he was still so upset, I absolutely felt for him. And it wasn't to save face, it was private. It was me saying, I didn't, and I misstepped in my apology. He picked it apart, but I genuinely meant, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You were too young to understand boundaries. Next sentence, that was my responsibility. He doesn't try to include all of that. In that first apology, I said, you didn't understand boundaries. Next sentence, that was my job, and I didn't do that for you.
And boundaries meaning?
Boundaries meaning when he started showing up at all the shows, and he would just stay, and after all the people were gone with the meet and greet, how do you tell someone who says they don't have any friends or they struggle to have friends, how do you tell them, listen man, you can't be hanging around every time like this? People start to look at that and they think, well, I want to hang around too. He gets special treatment. I saw it and I didn't know what do you say to someone vulnerable in that point? I had already established a connection that I wasn't prepared for it to evolve into what it did. And then I didn't know how to navigate.
Well, I just want to recap something that was in the Twitter DMs that you shared in the couple of minutes that we have left. There are 20 total messages between you and Johnny, between the first one and March 16th of 2015, which was the last message from Johnny where he said that you ghosted him. And 14 of the 20 messages are from Johnny. But you hadn't responded to him actually since January 30th, 2014. But as you said, your last interaction that you recall was, you said the couple of months around the divorce. Mm-hmm. Johnny had then sent 7 messages after that with no response from you. In his video titled, Let's Talk About Joshua David Evans, he says very emphatically that the last interaction he ever had with you was March 16th, 2015, saying, quote, "This is the last interaction I ever had with this man." He's saying that was March 2015. But of course, he went to the Shadows show, which was a few months after that. So as we've been trying to piece the timeline together, there have just been some things, some dates that my team and I are just not quite certain what's happening with those dates. Mm-hmm. But we have seen a last interaction, it seems, was on, last public interaction, at least on Twitter, that we found was on August 16th, 2016, which sounds...
Right around everything. August, September is when it happened.
Okay.
Can you tell me what that interaction was?
Yeah, his tweet is deleted, but your tweet says, "Bring it, bro, 90s music forever." Do you happen to remember what that was about?
I mean, I'm all about 90s music, and I'm sure he made a reference or something.
Okay.
That reaction is absolutely what I would have given anybody who referenced something that I'm into,
So to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah.
Why did you apologize in the way that you did?
Because his pain in those moments, initial moments that I started seeing all this pop up, his pain seemed so guttural and real that the first thing I wanted to do was run and say, whatever I did, whatever participation I was a part of with this, I am so sorry that it led to any type of pain for you, or it led to a disconnect of boundary or what was expected, or where I dropped off, or whatever role I played that led to this being so harmful for you. I want to let you know that that was never my heart, and I'm so sorry that happened. It was never my intent to swoop him in and then take him on this ride that led him to then be mistreated by Colleen and Kory on tour after the fact. Like there was no ill will. I never had ill will towards him. And I'm really trying my best now to not let my ego get in the way and say things I'll regret, because if you look at the things he says to me now, or not to me, he blocked me because I kept apologizing to him And he goes on to berate me daily on lives, on tweets directed at me, and then tells me, get my name out of your mouth, Josh. Yet all he does is drag me through the mud and embellish every single thing he can. The way he's piecing it together is so unfair, and he's using it now. It feels exactly how Colleen used other people behind the scenes to come after me. It's identical. The way it's being strung together, his word choices are so mean-spirited. I have never once tweeted something mean back to him, or you're this or you're that, and I can't, nothing. Maybe confusion, but the fact that all he wants to do is any opportunity he can get to drag me, he's doing it. To the point where, like, I'm afraid for my job. I'm afraid for the life I've built. I had lost everything. I lost my career. I lost the family I loved. I lost my self-confidence. I lost my will to live. To then finally choose myself and fight for myself. Because that's where it starts. You can't have other people do it for you. You got to do it yourself. And that's hard, to choose yourself. And I think a lot of people watching this can also understand it's hard to get up and say, you're worth it. You deserve better, so do it. To have fought so hard, to have done so much therapy, to have become so consistently sober, more than 3.5 years, to change careers completely, to start from the bottom, to live at my mom's house for 3.5 years. One, to take care of my mom and to be there for her, but also I needed it. I needed to heal. I needed to find myself again. And my mom gave me that opportunity, and I am forever grateful for my mother. To finally take a step out on my own and say, I'm doing this, and I'm gonna get my wife a house. I can do it because I have this job, and it's a great job, and I've worked hard to learn how to do this new type of job. I've only done entertainment my whole life. And because of all this, it's not a safe place for me at all. Everything that made me come alive is gone. I don't want to perform. I don't want to sing. I don't want anyone to look at me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to be on camera.
You had indicated that you were not going to return essentially to content creation.
There's no part of me that wants this to send me off into a new direction with YouTube. I don't want it. It doesn't make me happy. It makes me terrified. There's a poison in seeking validation and being relevant. It's a constant thing you always have to fight for. I don't want to do that anymore. I want my life and my wife and the job that I love, that I am finally doing so well in, and my little dog and my little tiny house, not some big mansion. I don't have that life anymore. I don't want it. To have fought so hard to get here, to then have someone not give two shits if their words affect me or not. When he knows so much of this is embellished and misleading. I even begged him in one of my initial messages, listen, man, I just want to live my life. It feels like right as I'm coming back up for air for the first time, you want to set fire and burn me down all over again. I've been through this and I made it out. It's triggering. For the first time, I'm not driving by a liquor store saying I gotta have it, but that thing in me is saying, maybe all of this effort is pointless. Maybe all this work that you put in is pointless because someone will still find a way. You'll still be second fiddle. You'll always fail. And it doesn't matter what you have to say about it.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not even sure I would have asked Joshua these next few questions knowing what I know now, but I've decided to leave them in for full transparency. We knew John had lied to us to some degree, but we're still in the process at the time of figuring out just how much he had lied to us. So at this time, I really wanted healing between these two men, especially since John kind of left the door open for that possibility at the end of our interview, although he kind of flipped and flopped and flipped. I don't really know, but I highly doubt that Joshua is interested in mending this fence now, especially after part 3. But to be fair to me, I really just wanted to see how Joshua's answer would look to this next question, and his answer was quite interesting.
I asked Johnny what he wants from you, and people online have been asking Johnny, what do you want from Joshua, from you? And he had, and again, I'm just paraphrasing here. I can't directly quote. I don't remember it immediately off the top of my head. But I think the one thing that he kind of landed on was that he wanted a phone call to talk to you. He just explained it as kind of a man-to-man phone call, one-to-one phone call. Looking at my notes here, what upset him the most was that after 7 years that you sent him a Twitter DM.
Yeah.
We've obviously heard your thoughts about the nature of how you viewed the relationship and you discussing boundaries and things and going through the divorce, which I do think, you know, is important for people to, regardless of where people's allegiance, where they want it to lie in this story, which is exceptionally nuanced. It's probably the most nuanced story that I've ever covered. That's why we've taken so much time to look into all of this, because it is, there's just so many pieces here. He said a phone call. It sounded like he wanted that chance to just talk to you and not get a Twitter DM.
Why would he expect me to call him when, for the past few years before all of this happened, he's out there dragging my name publicly, calling me a little bitch, that he would say it to my face? More than that, plenty more. Why would he expect now for me to be like, you know what, he deserves a phone call? Why would I pick up a phone when you've already been dragging my name through the mud, when I've never said anything ill towards you or about you? Again, the audacity. What do you expect me? Okay, here I go again. Let me be the bigger person again. So many times in my life, I feel like I always have to like go through the growing pains and no one else does. It's always me. I got to face it. Nobody else has to face it. They just get away with everything. And it's like, to me, yeah, if I had not seen those things, if I had not seen you dragging me for the last few years, maybe I would have thought, I don't have his number, but I'll ask for it. I lost it years ago. But the word was all up in my head. So the fact that I still reached out and still sympathized with him and still spoke from the heart, and all he did was take that and make content out of it, shows me exactly where his head is at now and where it was then and where it continues to be. Everything out of his mouth seems opportunistic, and it seems if there's a way for him to take something about me and amplify it and make it even worse, and to bring attention to every single thing I do and damn everything that I say or do and make it about him, then that's where he wants to be right now. And he wants to be man to man. I don't think he understands what that means, because a man doesn't do what he does. I'm willing to acknowledge, and I have, and I will continue to acknowledge my faults, my shortcomings, my selfishness, my bad behavior years ago. I'm man enough to face it. He wants everything in his own favor. He wants to be able to say what he wants, do what he wants, get all the acclamation, get all the followers he wants all of that. And then to also say, I just want a man-to-man conversation. No, you don't. You have not shown any type of behavior that shows that to me. That you don't come off to me as a man-to-man. You come off as someone who wants to see me suffer. You want to see me suffer. You're saying things that are just so utterly mean about everything. It's not just about our interactions. He tears apart everything I've ever done. My music, my shows, parts of who I am. He's tried to destroy every part of me. Who else did that? Colleen. And I'm supposed to say, cool, man to man, let's have a chat and be okay. In what world do you live in? Like, I want to come off like I'm okay and this is fine and let's end on a positive note, but this is hard. This is really hard, and I don't feel like it's fair. And I will say to him 1,000 times, I'm sorry for hurting you. And I'm sorry that by me distancing myself brought so much pain to you, and you interpret it in a way that has lasting effects. I will say it 1 billion more times, but I will not sit back and say, cool, say whatever you want, control the narrative, profit off of it. I'm not profiting off of any of this. I'm not making a dime. I'm not trying to spin it to get something for myself. He says everything I'm doing is performative. What part of this am I getting out of it? What good stuff am I getting out of it? I'm just getting more criticism, more finger pointing, more, he's only doing this for X, Y, Z. I can't say, I'm damned if I say something and I'm damned if I don't say something. I don't win. Not that I want to win and someone loses. All I'm trying to do is be authentic and be real and be compassionate. And all of it is rejected and twisted. He's doing what Colleen did. He's using fans, younger people, painting a picture of me, and then he's sending them out. Just like it happened in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, years. And now he's doing it. I'm getting those same kind of comments now. The DMs I get, I'm happy I'm sober and I don't drink, because if it was back then and I got these comments, it would have sent me right back to that bottle. But not anymore. I want my life and I want to protect it. My wife deserves it. My little dog deserves it. I feel riled up right now, but it's only because I want to protect my little bubble, my little private bubble, where I make little tiny videos on Instagram about going to Home Depot. That's all I'm doing. I'm not making money off of that. It's just, all of it feels wrong. It doesn't feel right. And once again, I feel like I either just tuck my tail and just accept that people are going to say what they're going to say and drag me once again, or I try to somewhere find the middle ground. I'm not a saint. I'm not perfect. I know I messed up, but I've done so much work to right those wrongs. I don't see anybody else popping up and taking accountability. It's not easy. I was the one rejected in the first place. And here I am again saying, I did these things. And it's like, it just doesn't matter. It's hard to feel like when you're a kid and you think you don't matter because someone tells you you don't matter. And then you're 39 and all of a sudden you got tons of DMs telling you how you are, like you don't matter. I wouldn't wish that on him.
If you could sum up what you're feeling in one word, what would that be?
So many words. Afraid. I'm afraid. I've been afraid of her for years and what she was capable of doing and what she did. Afraid of now losing everything that I worked so hard for in a very genuine, heartfelt way. No manipulation, no shady stuff, just trying to do the right thing and work hard. I'm afraid. This is my life.
Let me ask you one more question. One word, yes or no. Have you forgiven Colleen?
No. No one's ever asked me.
Do you think
Feel terrible saying.
you don't have to feel terrible for saying what you feel?
She's never shown me remorse. I don't forgive her, but I also do my darndest not even let her cross my mind. I don't want to think about her. And at this point, I'm very happy that I don't need it anymore. I have what I need.
If you were to give one final statement to the public who's watching this, what would you want to say?
I don't care how old you are, if you're a kid, a teen, college, a parent. When you seek the validation of an influencer rather than the people that are truly in your life, that's a road that becomes dangerous, that will lead to only pain and feeling let down. Value those in your life that truly show up, not just enjoy the clicks and not enjoy what your view does for them. There are a lot of mistakes I made, but I know there are a lot more that could have been done, that has been done from other people. And I plead to anyone watching this, seek strength in yourself, validation in yourself, and the people that are around you. And if you don't have someone around you, don't seek your validation from a social media person, a celebrity. They might care about you, but they can't. You're not their family. As much as that illusion exists, it's dangerous. Parents, watch what your kids are doing. Pay attention. Ask them. Say, can I see your phone? Don't be their best friend. Protect them. Because these influencers, me included, did not protect them before. So please, think about them first. And any influencers that might come across this and hate watch because I'm on it, you have an opportunity to make things better. Choose those things. You have an opportunity when you see things are wrong and that you could be complicit like I did, step up, go through the growing pains and say, this is not right. Being complicit to me can be just as damning as pulling the trigger yourself. I understand that because I did it and I have to carry that.
Regardless of where, this whole story lands ultimately, like I said at the beginning, I think your perspective, your context, sharing your story, I believe that you have the right to do so. And I appreciate you talking with me, sitting down here. I know this wasn't easy. And I think your words at the end there are as complicated and as nuanced as they are, given your history with all of these things and also things that are being said about you. I think those are important words for people to hear. So I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah.
There was one quote I said on my Twitter and I stand by it now. You don't have to be perfect to do the right thing. That's it. So start now. That's why I'm trying. I'm trying day after day.
So
thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for sitting down with me.
Yeah, this is the only one I'm doing. I'm not going to go anywhere else. And I value how you create these things and your perspective and your professionalism. Everyone you've brought into this mix, you've handled me with the kind of care that I have not experienced in years. And it means more than I can express in words, so.
My only hope is that everyone involved in this story finds some healing at the end of the day. Everyone is on their own journey. Mm-hmm. They have their own feelings. I will always stand by that. And I just hope everyone finds healing, and that includes you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I hope they find that too.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I want to take a moment before I give my final thoughts to this series and thank you all for being open enough to allow these very nuanced and complex conversations to be had. Joshua did not have to come here and speak with me, but he did. Pamela did not have to share her heart, but she did. In reality, there have been so many people involved in this story who have opened themselves up to share their stories with me throughout this entire docuseries. People like Adam, Becky, Oliver, Alex, Ella, Bella, Soph, and others. Being open, being vulnerable, no matter how difficult it may be, is not easy for anyone. And my hope throughout this series is that we can start to approach these topics the way that Pamela hopes for, with compassion, accountability where needed, honesty, and humanity. Now, accountability is a layered word, and its actions are open to interpretation depending on how we as individuals decide to view it. Again, I am just on the side of hoping that the truth can be discovered, that healing can be found, and that maybe as a community we can make an impactful change in how these stories are told, even when it hurts. It's why I'm so grateful to each and every one of you watching for taking your time to explore this nuanced portrait of so many individuals. No matter where someone in this story lands, whether they remain in the shadows with their actions or step into the light, I think one thing is certain: there's a lot to be learned here, and hopefully the path forward for these people who are hurting becomes more and more clear by the day. As always, please excuse the brief tone shift as a bit of a palate cleanser, and then I will conclude all of this with my final thoughts. You can be sure to grab your pieces from the brand new Petty University Valid collection by tapping the link below and in the pinned comment. I truly believe you're going to love these pieces as much as I do, and I hope they are a constant reminder of just how powerful, brave, and valid you are, and I can't wait to start seeing your outfit photos. Please do tag me on Instagram so I can repost you. That is also linked below. I'm also launching a brand new second channel that you can subscribe to right now. Well, I'll be producing entirely new docs on truly mind-bending topics as well as interviews. I hope you will join me over there. It is also linked below. Be sure to check my link below at kenzie.com and use code SWOOP2 to get 20% off your Kenzie IPL device, because you deserve it, honey. I want to echo some of the sentiments that I've had throughout covering this story over the last 3 months, which is my belief that the Colleen Ballinger universe and the actions of a few have had widespread, lasting negative effects on so many people, almost too many to count at this point. When I first pitched this story to my team, the three of us set out with one singular goal here: to get to the bottom of this story, figure out the pain it has caused so many, find the truth, and try to present that truth in hopes that maybe we can start to have healthier conversations around these topics so that hopefully in time everyone involved can find healing and the support that they need. I never imagined that this story would pan out the way that it did. I never imagined that halfway through this I would even be pulled in. Covering this story has been one of the most mentally, emotionally, and physically draining experiences I have ever had, and that goes for my team as well. The gaslighting, the manipulation, the uncertainty of who we could and who we couldn't trust with information as our investigation went deeper and deeper became almost overwhelming. And even with that in mind, my experience here, my team's experience, still pales in comparison to the experiences of those who I always want to keep front and center. Adam, Becky, Oliver, Ella, Bella, Alex, Soph, April, and all of the anonymous witnesses who have come forward privately and publicly. They have experienced a level of hurt, exhaustion, confusion, empowerment, vulnerability, and bravery that I can only try to comprehend. And through it all, they remained steadfast in their truths, no matter what the world did or didn't say, even in the face of Colleen Ballinger denying them the accountability that they asked for. And the fact of the matter is, more information could come out about Colleen or Kory or John or Josh or anyone directly involved in this story, and if it does, my team and I will be there to analyze it. But for the time being, Joshua came here, like many others, and shared his story, his pain, his participation in causing pain, and ultimately his hopes for everyone involved and the protection of future generations. And while it's not my place to accept his words on behalf of the others, I do hope at the very least, when all is said and done, as we refocus back on everyone I listed, that it might bring everyone maybe just one step closer to true healing when the time is right for them. So thank you all for watching, for giving me the space to share this story. Be good to each other, hold each other up, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.